right, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Hope everybody's doing well. I think we've got all our board members on now. Perfect. Just gonna wait at 5 o'clock now. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We are just after 5 o'clock, so to be respectful of your time, I want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us this afternoon or evening. I'm glad to see so many of your smiling faces. I hope everyone's staying warm and safe. Thank you for joining us, and for those of you that are watching, thank you for joining us on this brisk Tuesday evening. We're glad to have you all with us this evening. So with that, I would ask, let me read our board norms and protocols. As we do at every board meeting, we read these so that we are reminded of our board norms and protocols. As a board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions and making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So with that, I would ask Ms. Smith to do a roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, present.
Dr. Yeager.
Present.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And as a reminder, the Zoom etiquette, just remember if you were not speaking, if you could put yourself on mute. If you find yourself muted, it might be because the host may have muted you just to eliminate background noise, or so you don't hear Nacho barking. You can mute me as well. So just keep yourself on mute if you can, and then unmute yourself at any point to speak. So thank you very much. Before we move along with the agenda, I wanted to take some time for us to discuss a community effort that's in the works that has our students, staff, and families, and this entire community in mind. You may have noticed that over the last year, the moment of silence that had been happening at board meetings to remember the loss of our students. And today we say enough is enough. This afternoon, Ms. Page will start us off with a proclamation from the board. Ms. Page.
Thank you. To our KCKPS families, students, and the community, we as members of the Kansas City, Kansas School Board want to discuss a growing problem within our community. To be transparent, over the past year, our district has lost 18 of our students who would be focused on their futures, heading to college, their first job, and so much more. While not every tragedy was caused the same way, the majority of our students have died due to gun violence. In fact, 11 students in less than a year. Today, we, the board, declare enough is enough. We, along with the entire school district, are asking all of you to commit to the future of our students, to commit to speaking up when something is wrong, and to commit to making a difference. This is not just a Kansas City, Kansas public school issue. This is a community issue that we know by working together, we can change the outcome of. That is why we are asking not just families and students to sign our pledge for change, but for members of our community to join us in making an impact in the lives of our students. You can find the pledge by visiting https://enough.kckps.org. Soon you will start seeing blue ribbons pop up around our community. That ribbon is just one sign to remind each and every one of us of the commitment we are entering into. In the coming weeks, the district will be announcing additional projects to help curb the violence, educate our families and students, and promote student involvement in leading the change. We thank you for your commitment, and we ask that each of you stay safe. Sincerely, Randy Lopez, Board President, Wanda Brownlee Page, Vice President, Maxine Drew, Dr. Valdenia Nguyen, Janie Humphreys, Yolanda Clark, and Dr. Stacy Yeager. Thank you.
A nuestras queridas familias, estudiantes y comunidad de escuelas públicas de Kansas City, Kansas. Como miembros de la Junta Directiva Escolar de Kansas City, Kansas, queremos discutir un problema que está en aumento dentro de nuestra comunidad. Sinceramente, desde el año pasado, nuestro distrito ha perdido 18 de nuestros estudiantes. Estudiantes que estarían enfocados en su futuro, en camino a la universidad, su primer trabajo o mucho más. Aunque no todas las tragedias fueron causadas de la misma manera, la mayoría de nuestros estudiantes murieron debido a la violencia de armas de fuego. 11 de ellos perdieron su vida en menos de un año. Hoy, la Junta Directiva declara, basta ya. Nosotros, junto con todo el distrito escolar, les pedimos a todos ustedes que se comprometan con el futuro de nuestros estudiantes, que se comprometan a decir algo cuando algo anda mal y que se comprometan a hacer parte de la diferencia. Esto no es solo un problema de las escuelas públicas en Kansas City, Kansas. Es un problema de la comunidad que sabemos que si trabajamos juntos, podemos cambiar el resultado. Por eso es que no solo les pedimos a las familias y los estudiantes que firmen nuestro compromiso de cambio, sino también a los miembros de nuestra comunidad para que se unen a nosotros para lograr un impacto en las vidas de nuestros estudiantes. Pueden encontrar el compromiso visitando nuestra página web. Pronto comenzarán a ver lazos azules aparecer en nuestra comunidad. Esta cinta es solo una señal para recordarnos a todos y cada uno de nosotros que estamos comprometidos a formar parte del cambio. En las próximas semanas, el distrito anunciará proyectos adicionales para ayudar a disminuir la violencia, educar a nuestras familias y estudiantes y promover la participación de los estudiantes para liderar un cambio. Les agradecemos su compromiso y les pedimos que se mantengan cuidadosos. Sinceramente, su Junta Directiva de la Escuela del Distrito Escolar. Gracias. Dr. Miguel.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, Ms. Page, and board members. From the staff, we want this community, our families, our students, and all of our staff to know that this initiative is because of each and every one of you. You all matter. We know the pain and heartache is there, and we stand together, united to prevent future incidents. This work is just starting, and we have a long road ahead of us. But I know that with determination, heart, and willingness, nothing and no one can stand in our way. So when you see that blue ribbon, know it's a visible symbol of strength. It's our district blue. It's a symbol of our unity to make sure that all of our students and our community are on track for a bright and successful future. I look forward to the weeks to come, to the partnerships as they grow, and for our students to take a stand in our community, for our friends, for our brothers, our sisters, and for the students in our KCKPS family. Queremos que esta comunidad, nuestras familias, nuestros estudiantes y empleados sepan que esta iniciativa es para cada uno de ustedes. Ustedes son importantes, cada uno de ustedes cuenta y sabemos que hay dolor en la comunidad y juntos vamos a trabajar para que esto no vuelva a pasar. Este es solo el comienzo y tenemos un largo camino por delante, pero sabemos que con voluntad no hay nada que se pueda interponer en nuestro camino. Cuando vean las cintas azules, sepan que es un símbolo de nuestra fortaleza. Es el color azul del distrito, un símbolo de nuestra unidad para asegurarnos que nuestros estudiantes y nuestra comunidad están camino a un futuro exitoso. Espero con anticipación el apoyo de la comunidad en las próximas semanas, las alianzas que se formarán y escuchar las voces de nuestros estudiantes en la comunidad, por nuestros amigos, nuestros hermanos y hermanas y por todos los estudiantes en esta familia que son las escuelas de Kansas City, Kansas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you, Ms. Page, and thank you, board. With that, we are at the approval of our regular agenda, so I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
You're on mute, Wanda. You're on mute, Wanda.
Sorry. Yes. Wanda Brownlee Page, yes. Gotcha.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Now we are at the point of our agenda. One of my favorite parts, our awards and recognitions.
Well, good evening, Mr. President, Board, and Dr. Miguel. I'm Jody Mitchell, and I am going to be presenting this month's Employee of the Month nomination, and we are nominating and approving Heather Duvee. She is a third grade teacher at Stony Point South, and the nomination was submitted by Susan Hendricks, which is our principal at Stony Point South, and it's a pretty amazing nomination, actually. I'm going to go ahead and read it, and then I don't know if she is on this evening, but we will accept her award. So the nomination reads, this past week, which would have been the first week in October, Miss Duvee saved the life of one of our Stony Point South's parents. She was engaged in a small group of students in a guided reading lesson when she noticed one of her students crying, which quickly progressed to the student showing signs of extreme distress. The student was jumping up and down and screaming. Miss Duvee asked her to unmute herself, and when the student did, she told Miss Duvee that her father was on the kitchen floor and not responding. Miss Duvee acted quickly and told the student to take her iPad into the kitchen so she could see her dad. Miss Duvee knew immediately that something was terribly wrong, called 911, the police, and the student's mother. She told the student to go outside to find an adult. A workman and a neighbor quickly responded, and the ambulance was there in no time. And Miss Duvee alerted the counselor, who stepped in quickly to assess the need of the students. And therefore, sorry, I just lost my place. Parents were contacted to make sure all students' needs were being met and made sure they were all okay until they could be reunited with their family. The student's father underwent immediate open heart surgery and is alive today because of Miss Duvee's quick and level-headed response. She is this family's hero, a dedicated teacher, always giving 100% to her students. We are so blessed to have her on our school team.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Ms. Duvee, for your amazing work. Again, just a sign of how our staff go above and beyond and really are heroes in our community. So we're so proud of you and proud that you're one of our family members and that you're taking care of our kids. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Mitchell.
So good afternoon, Board President Lopez, Madam Vice President, fellow members of the board, Dr. Miguel. I get the pleasure of introducing our Students of the Month, and we have 4 great students that were selected this month. And before we get started with that, I would like to say there were well over 100 nominations. So the competition for these slots it's very competitive. I want to send a shout out to our schools and our staffs for getting these names to us so that we can select students to honor, here in our school district. So thank you to you guys. The first student that we're going to honor is from the KCKPS And that student is, and give me 1 second here, I'm not as talented on the screen share as I'd like to be, but I'm getting better. That is Aaron Urquidi Monje. And that is Aaron's picture. And Aaron never misses school or a Zoom. He started by using words. And as we know at the ECE level, he is using full sentences right now. So we know that language development is right on path. And we have a young man there that's going to be reading at grade level in no time. So thank you, Aaron, for all you do. Muchas gracias por todo que haga. At the elementary level, we have Khaled Obey-Idet. Khaled is a third grader at Edison Elementary. And Khaled is very kind, is very considerate, is outgoing, and besides having a great tie on that I would love to borrow, he is a musician. So he's engaged in music already, and we want to send a shout out to him and his family, and a thank you to Edison Elementary for nominating him. For our 6th grade honoree, or our middle school, got ahead of myself there, we have a 6th grader from Central Middle School. And our 6th grader this evening is Kaylin Sandoval. And I will get her picture up here. Kaylin is known for helping other students. She keeps herself on task, she keeps her peers on task, and has even been known to keep her teacher on task in a very polite way. So Kaylin, thank you for all you're doing at Central Middle School, and congratulations to you and your family for this honor. The last student we will honor is from Sumner High School, and she is a 12th grader. And her name is Dulce Rodriguez. Dulce is very caring towards her peers, her community, and she has gone out of her way to begin work with the college prep music program. So Dulce, congratulations, congratulations. I saw Mr. Malone on here, so congratulations to Sumner. And board and Dr. Miguel, we just one more time like to congratulate all our students. And then I will just put in a shameless plug to our staff. Continue to send those names in, make the process hard for us, because the more names we get in, the happier we are. And we are definitely happy to honor our students and our community.
Thank you, Mr. Linkus. And again, congratulations to all of our students of the month. Keep those nominations coming in. We're so proud of you. And again, this is just a reminder of why we're here and the root of all of our educators. You are doing an amazing job with our students and their families. And we're so proud of these students, especially in these challenging times, but all of you are going above and beyond, and we couldn't be prouder of you. So this just serves as a reminder to all of us of why we're truly here. So thank you. With that, we will continue on with our agenda, and we have reached the section of community comment. There are several comments that are on the agenda, so I will be helping Ms. Smith read some of these so she doesn't have to do them all herself. So I'll read the first few. First comment comes from Kieran Angelo. Good afternoon, Ms. Smith. My name is Kieran Angelo. I am a senior at Washington High School, and I took it upon myself to start a petition about sports as same as the surrounding school districts who are playing sports right now. So far, we have 164 responses from athletes and parents, all saying yes, they would like sports to start again in USD 500. If this petition could be showed at the board meeting tomorrow, it would be greatly appreciated. You know from experience, you only get one senior year. Please help us live our full high school experience. For me, basketball is all I've ever wanted to do with my life, and as of right now, I have no college scholarship offers, but I know for a fact that if we get the chance to play this season, I'll be playing at the next level. That's just not for me. These sports are outlets for some of us. Some kids have trouble at home, so they use sports as their source of happiness. Some kids are also wanting to make a career in their sport to provide for their families. We promise to follow all protocols and policies for COVID-19 to keep everyone safe, same as we did at the football workouts. We have over the course of the summer at Washington High School and ended with 0 cases. Please don't let fear affect you all's judgment for our last chance to do what we love with our life, please. I plan to keep the petition active to show our efforts and how much this means to us. Sincerely, a kid who wants a fair chance. Our next comment comes from Bernice Alvarado. She simply says, "We want to play." Next comment comes from Malik Calhoun, who also shares, "We want to play." The next comment comes from Fernando Hernandez, who says, "We want to play." Javel Hunter, "We want to play." Anderson Jones shares, "We want to play. Please give everybody our respectable seasons so we can make it out and be the future."
Okay. This is from Randall Johnson. "I'm a student at Wyandotte High School that plays football, and I've seen a post from someone I knew from Washington. Would you mind looking at these stats to determine if we can play sports again? Mind you, Johnson County has more cases than us. Now keep that in mind, would you? Thank you." Our next comment is coming from Michael Reed. "We want to play. We fought long and hard to keep cautious while playing the sport we love. We deserve this. Sincerely, a player from Harmon High School in KCK." Our next comment comes from Nova Mays. "I'm very concerned about the safety of the students who have to walk to the new Laurel Broom Elementary School at 91st Parallel Parkway. First, 91st Street does not have any curbs or sidewalks, and it is a very busy street. There is no place for a child to go, especially after it's been snow plowed. Residents don't want the students making a beaten path in their yards besides the liability insurance. Georgia Avenue between 91st and 99th isn't even 2 vehicle lanes wide. Definitely no place to step out of the way. With the deer season and the bucks are in full rut, that becomes a danger because they take on anything and everything. Been there, done that."
Thank you, Ms. Smith, and thank you to all of those who submitted comment. We will continue with our agenda and move on to our communications section of the agenda and proceed with Dr. Alicia Miguel, Interim Superintendent of Schools.
Before someone tells me. Thank you, Mr. Lopez. And we have lots of good news, but before we get into the good news that we're going to report, I would like to clarify a message that went out to staff today. Staff received a letter today letting everyone know that some staff members may be asked to return to in-person teaching due to the fact that the services that we need to provide to some students may not be able, we may not be able to meet those needs remotely. So this is being evaluated on an individual basis, and staff will have the opportunity to request accommodations if for any reason they cannot report in person. So it's not going to be the majority of teachers or staff coming back. If you're required to return in person, you will be contacted individually. So people will receive an individual notification. When you receive the notification, if for any reason you cannot report, you contact HR with that link that was given to you in the letter, and accommodations will be provided. No one will be penalized. There is no reason to panic or to feel intimidated by the request. This is just an effort to make sure that we can provide services to the students that otherwise would not be able to receive services. So just that clarification to get started. And now we're going to talk a little bit about schools And last week we had the ribbon cutting at West Park Elementary. And so as part of that, we had the chance to tour the school. We got to see some classes in session, kindergarten teachers doing jumping jacks with students on the screen, counting to 100, the music teacher teaching students about string instruments, all kinds of really good things that made us feel so good about being again in a school. And so we had conversations with teachers, with the principal and assistant principal, and we thought it was so fulfilling that we wanted to bring some of that to you guys directly from principals and teachers. So we invited one principal and one teacher from each level so that they could share with you some of the things that are going well, knowing we have still lots of challenges, but there are such good things going on that we did not want to keep that from you. So we're going to start with early childhood, and we have Heather Turi and Erica LeBlanc from Kansas City, Kansas Early Childhood Center.
Good evening. Kim had asked me to kind of speak about how we're monitoring classrooms. So I just wanted to share a little bit of information about that. KCK ECC is our biggest early childhood center. So we have 20 classrooms, and we do synchronous learning twice a day for our early childhood kids who are 3, 4, and 5. So we do an opening circle and a closing circle. And then we keep of those links in a Google Doc so that we kind of use them for walkthroughs and observations, just like we would in the school building. And then we do our asynchronous work on Seesaw, and we ask our classroom staff to monitor that too. So we ask them to record their feedback so that the students can hear their voices. And that's really fun to hear the kids' responses to their teachers on Seesaw. And then our teachers have been meeting in their PLCs, and they'll bring short little snippets of their synchronous learning. And we've been doing a push and polish protocol so that they can kind of help one another develop some new strategies, because this is kind of a new world for all of us, especially with little ones. 15 little faces on Zoom is kind of like watching an anthill. So we do our best to keep them engaged. But Erica really has done an excellent job, and she is actually Erin, our early childhood student of the month. She's one of his teachers, so we can tell that she's been doing an excellent job, and she just wanted to speak a little bit about keeping those little guys engaged. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm a teacher at Kansas City, Kansas Early Childhood Center, and I was asked to speak a little bit about how we're keeping our little ones engaged in learning, and especially during remote learning. And in early childhood, we know that at this age, our students learn best through play and through hands-on learning. So during remote, as I'm sure it is for all teachers, this becomes even more challenging as our students don't have access to all the same materials that they would in the classroom. So we've had to really brainstorm ideas and ways to bring that hands-on learning and that feel of play into our meetings. So in order to promote this, we have tried to focus on what the children do have access to. And for example, during our deployment of iPads, each student also received a packet of materials, and included in those materials were Play-Doh. And as you can imagine, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds love to use Play-Doh. So we've been able to use the Play-Doh in many different ways to help their engagement and their learning. For example, we've had them make letters with Play-Doh. We've had them cut Play-Doh and count the different pieces. So we've been able to work on some of those pre-academic skills even during remote learning, and in ways that provides them the feel of play as well as something that's hands-on. in the deployment, they also, in their packets, they also received little foam tiles, little squares, and we asked them to bring that to their Zoom meetings, and we've been able to use those for counting and sorting, patterning. We've even made letters with those too. So little things like that have helped promote the engagement. And then another example is that today we've been learning about the letter L. And so we asked parents to help their child find something in the home that began with the letter L. So that was something we did today. And we had leaves and lines and LOL dolls. They were becoming very creative. And so it gave us an opportunity to talk about those initial letter sounds and what they hear, and providing something concrete for them to also manipulate while we were having that discussion through Zoom. And I've also been able to see some other teachers use things too, household items such as cooking utensils to pretend they're musical instruments and count with. That way the students are still highly active, which is what our little ones need. But it also gives them the opportunity to learn while still having fun, which is really important in early childhood. So.
Thank you so much, Heather and Erica. Really good awareness of how you're reaching the kids even at that early age. Not surprised, but very impressed. Very nice. Now we have West Park Elementary. We have Dr. Wright and Jordan Phipps with us.
Good evening, good afternoon to Board President Mr. Lopez, Vice President Wanda Brownlee Page, Dr. Miguel, and board members. I'm always excited to share with you the great things that's happening at West Park. Many of you had a chance to witness that last week during the ribbon cutting ceremony. But I just wanted to just share some of the things that we're doing, but I just can't take all the credit because I connected with some of my colleagues to also find out some great things that's happening at their schools. But what I really love is that we know that remote learning is a little bit, is different, but we are still seeing high engagement with our students. Our students are really learning the critical content. The teachers are teaching that, the critical content, and they're holding kids accountable for the work. Just like many of the other schools did during deployment, our teachers made sure that the students had everything they need for first quarter, and now we're getting ready for second quarter deployment. So they're making sure that all the manipulatives and all those things that they need to really enhance and support the learning are there for them. But I'm going to really focus on high participation with our children. We've been averaging like a 95% attendance rate. From the other schools, Eugene, where they had 3 family parent events, and they had at least 50% participation rate or higher. Great partnership with families. With Banneker, they've done some assemblies that they had with their kids. Good parent communication. And so just across the board, I'm hearing these great things that are happening, not just at West Park, but at some of the other schools. And so although it's different, I'm excited to say that when the teachers put those structures in place, like at West Park, and Ms. Phipps is going to talk a little bit about that, how I asked our students, because we're a uniform school, if they would get up in the morning and put on their uniform shirts. That uniform shirt is setting the tone for learning. They're sitting up at their tables or at their desks, and they're working. And so when teachers have those structures in place, kids are doing well and fulfilling those structures. So I'm excited to see what's happening at West Park, but I'm going to let Ms. Phipps kind of share what's actually going on in her classroom.
Hi guys, good evening. I'm Mrs. Phipps. I'm a 5th grade teacher at West Park Elementary. And I spent the last couple of days talking amongst my colleagues, asking about what were some of the things they felt were going really well in their classrooms. And as a whole, we sat down and there are 90% of our students out of the 5th grade that are in attendance every single day. I have 95% of my students every single day. So I have 21 out of my 22 students that are constantly there. The one who's not there is a kiddo who goes from mom's house to dad's house to grandma's house. So the internet, is some days he has it, some days he doesn't, but he tries his best. So we have made contact with all of our 5th grade students at least several times per week, but we are averaging that 90% rate every single day. What's going well for us amongst the 5th grade as a team is student attendance, classroom engagement, student communication, parent involvement, completion of student work, and still celebrating student success. And classroom engagement, our rooms are very inviting and decorated for students. The 5th grade, I know a lot of us, most of us like to go in every single day, but with the cutback, we've had to, decide who's going in on what day. And so we do like to go into the building. Our rooms are currently set up with our units of studies. Right now, figurative language, engineering design process. We currently closed out our engineering design process with building robots. So we had the kids come up with some paper ideas at home, whether it was a cardboard box, a leftover pizza box, a Kleenex box, toilet paper rolls. They would build a robot, and this robot had to do something for them. Some of them said they don't like cleaning their room or folding their laundry. So they invented these robots. They put together a Google Slides presentation and presented it to the entire class of what their robot was able to do. So that was really fun and engaging for them. So just making sure that we have that rich, engaging content for our students. Student communication, we have study hall or office hours where students can meet with us between the hours of 2:30 and 3:30, whether it's personal chat, whether they want support with their homework, whether they're not doing their homework and they must stay with us in study hall, so holding them accountable for that. Morning meetings, check-ins, Google Form check-ins, making sure that our students are receiving what they need from us as educators and as a friend. Parent involvement. We use the app called Talking Points, which comes in very handy because I can literally be on Zoom and have my phone down here as I'm saying, hey, where's your kid? So it's super nice because kids will log in at 8:30. Parents are at work. They see, oh, my kid's on Zoom. All right, guys, it's time to go to specials. 9:45 comes around. Your kid's MIA. So I reach out to parents. Parents are now at work. They check in with their kids saying, hey, Mrs. Phipps says you're not on Zoom. Log back in. And with a matter of minutes, the kids are back on Zoom where they need to be. So Talking Points has been a lifesaver for our team. So we send daily text during asynchronous work time. I will write on a whiteboard for students to look at saying, for example, 9:45 to 10:30, you're on Imagine Learning. From 10:30 to 11 o'clock, you're on Amplify Vocab. So I give them a list. I take a picture of that whiteboard and I send it through Talking Points so that parents can help keep kids on track, monitor their work while they're on asynchronous work. And it also holds the kids accountable on their end because I wrote it down. I showed them what my expectation was. And if you chose not to do it during asynchronous work, you'll be spending study hall with me between 2:30 and 3:30. So it's making sure that we're holding those kids accountable. And let me tell you, they don't like staying with me from 2:30 to 3:30. So they're where they need to be. Parent involvement. Again, we use the Talking Points. We communicate successes, behaviors, making those daily phone calls or text messages home, just a quick check-in. Completion of student work, again, is done in study hall or office hours, staying late for that extra support. And we celebrate student success through Class Dojo. We do that building wide, making sure that we recognize those student recognitions, calls home to parents, and classroom chants so that all the friends in our Zooms can recognize them as well. So that's kind of what's going well in 5th grade at West Park.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wright and Ms. Phipps. Ms. Phipps, is that Talking Points, is that the app that also translates for parents?
Yes. So there are many, many different languages, and I think it's a Burmese, maybe Swahili. I can't remember for certain, but there's one language that I know that our school district really relies on, and it's not in there. But yes, so I can send a message in English and it translates to Spanish, and there's a whole different set of other languages. I can program it to go to mom's phone, just dad's phone. I can send one swoop, text to mom and dad. If mom wants to permit a relative to be on the group chat as well, then we can hook the relative up. I can send a whole class message to all parents at once in English, and it can go out in 20 different languages.
Wow.
And so they can respond back in Spanish, and it comes to me in English.
And Dr. Miguel, I just want to add to everyone, because of that app, that's really supported our high participation. Because a lot of times we reach out and call parents when we don't see kids in class, but the teachers use that app and we get immediate response. Sometimes they may not answer their phone, but they will look at that text. And so the staff at West Park has been using that, and our participation has been very high.
That's amazing. And I think that feature of translating it either back to English to you or in the language that they have designated as their language of preference is amazing and enhances that communication. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I have to give it to Talking Points that it's probably been the reason for our success on 5th grade. I know that I kind of pumped that app when I first joined the 5th grade team, and they're all using it and they're like, oh my gosh, it is amazing, because literally I'll send a text out and with a matter of minutes, that kid's back online.
Wonderful. So I know everyone is taking notes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, West Park Elementary. Now we have Argentine Middle, and we have Tracy Sorrells and Micah Lewis. I hope I said that right, Mr. Lewis.
Good evening. As mentioned, I'm Tracy Sorrells, principal at Argentine Middle School. And I would just like to say, as my first year at Argentine, what a time to transition. It's been amazing. I have been truly impressed with the dedication of the staff. And I think that has contributed to, we have over 90% of our students participating each and every day. And for middle school, they have to log on every hour. I just think that's something to really attribute the hard work of our staff. The first couple of weeks, probably about 3 weeks, we asked the teachers to really spend some time developing those relationships and focus on the social and emotional well-being of our students. And I really think that has a lot to do with our attendance and the participation rate I see when we go into the classroom to monitor the instruction. I mean, you go in there, you see 27, 28 kids on Zoom participating and eager to learn. And I really contribute that to the hard work of our teachers and just the dedication and the work that they put in to meet the needs of our students. They have dedicated a plan time every day to contacting parents of any student that may be missing class. And so really making those connections has really done wonders. And I've just really been, truly impressed with the participation of middle school. Didn't really know what to expect, but it has really been wonderful. And I have invited Mr. Lewis here. He's 8th grade math, and he has some of the best participation and engagement that I've seen. And so I really want him to speak to how he's getting our students interested and engaged in math, which is, I don't think any of us would want to learn math during remote learning, but he's doing a good job at it.
Thank you, Mrs. Sorrells. Thank you, Dr. Miguel. My name doesn't get said right a lot of times, and you did it right the first time out. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't do very well at the fact and opinion portion of my education. So I do believe Argentine is probably the greatest middle school that there ever has been, and that is a fact. There's my 11th year, so I do have the luxury of knowing as these kids come into my room, and I don't get them to share their video. That's a battle I don't pick. I have other battles I do pick. But the big thing is I know them. I've known them for the 3 years they've been at Argentine. I've gone to their confirmations when they were little kids in tuxedos. I've been to their homes. I know their families. Like I've been around for a little bit, so I do have that luxury. The three things that I think are paramount for my class are one, show up. You have to show up. Nothing's going to happen if you don't show up. Two, you need to try something. If you're not going to share your video, you need to share something. It can be wrong. I celebrate wrong. I celebrate right equally, because I can do something with both of those. I can't do anything with silence. So one thing that I've really been working on with them, and they've done a fantastic job, is when they're sitting there and I have them on whatever the attendance on Google Meet, and I can see who's in the class and who's not, is when I'm checking for understanding throughout the lesson. I can go up and down the list, and I'll tell them, I'm going to go up and down the list. Be ready with something. It can be wrong. I tell them, if you know how to do everything there is to do already, there's no need for school. So be as wrong as you want to be. We can do something with that. And we celebrate that because we can take that and turn it into right. And if you're right, we celebrate that as well. But we do make sure that everybody has a voice, everybody is heard, and we'll sit there and wait for them. And the follow up to that is, I heard that people are texting during asynchronous, during our do now, to get people to get there. Like I had to learn a lot when I first came into this remote learning. I had to change a lot of things that I've done, and Ms. Sorrells and a lot of other people, teachers. I've just been learning from a lot of different people at Argentine and taking things from them. Even being in 11 years, I'm mentoring a second year teacher, and he's so much better at remote learning than I am. I'm really good in the classroom. He's amazing, and I've pulled so much from him. So one, like, you can't be someone that ceases to learn. Like, you have to. I make mistakes with the kids all the time. I got booted out of my class the other day, and before an admin could get into my class, I got back in, and one of my kids was sharing his screen and teaching the class. It was one of my kids. It was one of my kids on an IEP as well, where math and the language is tough for him. But he was teaching the class, and all the kids were engaged, and it was pretty awesome. So just building that community, one, show up, two, try, and three is just building that community. Part of our do now at the beginning of a class when they're getting in is not, hey, let's do some math bell work, but hey, let's get everybody here. So what I'll do is I'll have one of my kids share their screens so the other kids can see like where it is I want them to go from a student's perspective. I don't share my screen very much at all. I don't do a lot of direct instruction. I'll have the kids share their screens, and we'll take screenshots of what they're working on, put it on the Jamboard, and do it kind of a Socratic method. Now, I do have to call on them and kind of make sure that they're responding, because if you just call on 8th graders and wait for them, or wait for them to respond, they don't respond. So, but that do now portion is get people to class. So as I'm taking attendance, I'll just call off kids' names like, hey, you got this kid. I know you're not supposed to be on a cell phone in class, but text them, get a hold of them, get them to class. And I'll have the kids are better at getting kids to class than I am. Like I'll sit there and text parents while kids are doing that, and as they're getting ready and getting class ready to go. But take care of each other is the third thing. One, show up. Two, try. And three, take care of each other. The kids are better at getting themselves on than anybody else. And that's why I just wanted to show up this year and teach and do like what I've done the past 10 years of teaching. And that just wasn't working. I had actually very low attendance my first 1 or 2 weeks. And now I'm missing, you have 2 or 3, 4 kids from each class missing instead of 13 every day. So those are the 3 things that I've kind of built this year. And that's really helped the community in my classroom, especially that, who like Mr. Sorrell says, like math is, I like math, but I like teaching more, and I like being in school more, and I hope the kids see it more as, they're missing out on their social time, they're missing out on their sports, but they still see it as a community where I can come and just be with other people and bounce ideas off of other people and mess things up, and it's okay. But really it's that community piece that is the most important thing. And that's something that I had to learn that. I learned that the hard way my first 2 weeks, and I had to change a lot of things that I was doing. And I hope we can go back. I do. I want those numbers to come down, and I want to go back. But we need to make the most of this opportunity. We can't use this time as an excuse to like waste away. We need to come strong, even despite of it. In spite of this COVID thing that we've been given, and come strong with it anyway. And that's what my kids, I don't give them a message of you need to pull yourself by your bootstraps and persevere. No, you care for them, and then they run through walls for you. And that's what we do. And that's why it's the kids more than anything I'm doing. They're taking care of each other, because that's the community and culture we built. Thank you.
And that energy he has is contagious, as you can tell. His kids feed off of that.
And I see we're all smiling as we listen to him. And thank you, Ms. Sorrells and Mr. Lewis. And as I listen to you, what comes to mind is, you know how we say sometimes, I don't teach reading, I don't teach math, I teach kids. And that's exactly what Mr. Lewis is sharing with us, that enthusiasm and love for kids and sharing that feeling that we all have that we want the kids in the building. Thank you so much. That was really very inspirational. And now we have high school. What's happening in high school? We have Dr. Malone and Mr. Eddie Gunter from Sumner.
Well, thank you, Dr. Miguel, and good evening, President Lopez and fellow board. I did create a quick little PowerPoint. I'll share my screen and try not to talk too much. But when we think about I am going to talk a little bit about the struggles and successes we've seen at Sumner Academy. But before I get started, of course, I want to thank the board and just allowing a lot of the flexibility for our staff. That's been critical, as well as the continued focus on the safety of our students. I know you guys have made some really tough decisions, and we couldn't be more appreciative of the work that you're doing. And I want to make sure I take an opportunity to let everybody know how proud I am of our certified staff and their continued resilience and flexibility and really adapting to this environment. And proud of our students and their family, proud of Dulce, Student of the Month, and just all of our students and everything that they've done to create that environment at home that we are requiring the families at home to take charge and a lot of the learning and create that environment at home. And I'm thankful for our families. And of course, thankful for our classified staff and all their work. We have a lot of roles that look a lot different this year, and their continued focus for our students and our families and our staff, as well as our custodial staff and in the Department of Physical Properties. They're continuing to do repairs and really taking opportunities because the students aren't in the building to do some of those necessary things. You know, when we think about the struggles that we went through as we transitioned, we learned a lot of important information fourth quarter last year, but then the situation was similar, but some of the conditions and expectations were really different. So the first thing our teachers had to do is really adapt to creating high quality instruction in the virtual world. We quickly realized that you couldn't do the same thing that you did brick and mortar and try to replicate that in the virtual world. You know, formative assessments. I think the teachers quickly realized that all the nonverbal communication and the quick checks for understandings you do by looking over students' shoulders and how critical that is on a day-to-day basis, and having to rethink, how do I do that in a virtual world when I do have a lot of blank screens and I'm just using a lot of thumbs up as Zoom and trying to be creative around what platforms I bring in to get some of that formative assessment. And then just the adjustment of the calendar. You know, I think teachers are really excited to increase the amount of instructional time they had on Wednesdays, but also taking a look, how do we find that time to meet on a regular basis with staff to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our teachers, as well as adjusting our planning. You know, we, in a typical high school, we have 90-minute blocks, and really adjusting that to that synchronous time of using about 50% of that synchronously, and then planning in a way so that asynchronous is just as beneficial as the synchronous time when it's not led by a teacher, was a real big shift. I know a lot of the struggles that our teachers are talking about is grading and feedback, how to do that effectively. Our teachers are providing a lot of work during that asynchronous time, and then finding time both to plan and adjust those plans, as well as provide some really effective feedback. Our performance courses, such as PE or our band, they use a lot of video submissions to understand the techniques of playing those instruments or the techniques of doing those workouts. So that creates a lot of time for those teachers to review those with fidelity and provide some of that feedback. And then another struggle or kind of roadblock is just the social emotional health of students. We had a lot of conversations with our behavior health team. When a student comes in the building and they're having maybe social emotional problems, we get to see that right away. We get to see that as they wear that emotion in their face as they're going to class and putting their head down, but we don't get the opportunity to see it as readily. So our response time to be able to respond to those kids, it's critical. And our teachers have done a really good job of building that relationship with the students so they can try to identify those concerns early so we're able to respond to that. And I think kind of the new struggle is just the uncertainty of hybrid. I think hybrid at the secondary level looks a lot different. And we're lucky that a lot of schools in the metro area are doing some hybrid, and I think we'll get some good feedback when that time comes. When we take a look at some of our successes, our attendance rate right now, our average pulled yesterday, 96%. Our very first day, our attendance rate was 98%. So we're very proud of our attendance rate. Our kids are logged in. It's very often you'll go into an observation and see full attendance in all those courses. I think we've really increased effectively the way we communicate to our students and our parents. We've really relied heavily on email communication, weekly updates to our parents, monthly newsletters out to our parents. The communication between parents and teachers have increased as well. And just really, we realized quickly that we do a lot of morning announcements, afternoon announcements, and the use of TVs in the building to relay lots of information. How do we continue to reflect and use email and social media to communicate? And then back to the adaptation of formative assessments or other tools that our teachers are using. We're seeing a lot of great tools in the classroom. Nearpod and Kahoots, Quizlet, Pear Decks, Google Forms. Teachers are really branching out. And I think these are all great tools that we've used before, kind of brick and mortar as kind of an accessory to our teaching. And now these tools are a necessity in the virtual world. And one good thing I keep telling teachers, when we get back to brick and mortar, we're going to have so many tools in our toolbox that we'll be able to use in teaching. I've been very impressed with our coaches continuing to do athletic skills and conditioning. Lots of our sponsors doing virtual clubs. We had our Spirit Week. Stuco is meeting regularly. We had Spirit Week. Yesterday was Bring Your Pet to Class Day. So you logged into a class and you saw a dog sitting by the student. We wouldn't be able to do that in the building. So just those social, emotional needs that our kids have in that full high school experience and really bringing some of those back. Our Diploma Plus team with our college and career teams in the building have done a great job with our virtual college fair, our district scholarship initiative. We had seniors through a drive-through Jostens pickup last week, picking up scholarship information, Jostens information. We had good attendance there. Our kids care about college and they feel reinvigorated that we're still focusing on that post-secondary success. I think one of the other successes we've had is the flexibility with being virtual. We've had a lot more opportunities to collaborate with staff, collaborate with our stakeholder teams. Because of the virtual world, we have easier flexibility to meet on a more regular basis to really get teachers involved. And then I've really been impressed with really our elective-based courses. I spoke to it a little bit earlier, just how our art and performing arts and our PE is really adapted to the virtual environment and making those very meaningful classes. I also have Mr. Gunner here. He's going to provide kind of a nice teacher perspective. He's a veteran staff member here at Sumner Academy, teaches a whole bunch of different courses between our IB core classes, as well as being our International Baccalaureate Career Program Coordinator. So I'll have Mr. Gunner take it away.
Good evening, Dr. Miguel, Mr. Lopez, members of the board. I'm so honored to be here tonight. Normally standing in front of a computer talking to students, that is where I'm really good. And I told my kids today that I was doing this tonight, and they were like, "Oh, you'll be awesome." And I'm like, "No, I don't really like talking to adults." So that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, I'm super excited, and I'm so excited about what I've heard about the students that are coming to me. Like, how awesome is that? The early childhood, the elementary, the middle school kids that are coming, they're just going to be so awesome. And I'm so proud of the staff that is in those buildings. And just wanted to kind of share for you kind of what's going on in from a teacher perspective. So I'll show you here my screen. Okay, so just a reminder that we are an IB international program. We have two programs of the IB at Sumner Academy. We have the international full IB diploma program, and then we have the career program that I'm part of. And you can see our pathways there. We have expanded our pathways over the last 3 years, and even in a virtual environment, teaching in the pathways in the career technical education we thought would be a challenge. And I'm just so happy to tell you that not only are we doing it, we're thriving in those areas, in government, public administration, teaching, graphic design, business finance, project lead the way with computer software, engineering, and biomed. We're just doing a really, really great job. I'm so proud of the CP program. I mean, being the coordinator is a nice little title, but let's be really honest, that has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the kids and the staff that support that. Last year, in our second year of the program, 83% of our students that were able to get the IB career certificate, that is 51% above the world average. And so I'm super proud of that class of 2020. And we put the challenge out there for the class of 2021 to exceed that. I told them that my goal with Mr. Malone would be 90%. And that group came back to me on day one and said, we have to do better than that. We have to get 100% because that's what the district wants us to do. And so we are striving for 100% of students to get this career certificate this year. We've got 33 students, seniors that are engaged every day and working really hard in these various pathways. I just wanted to give a quick shout out and thank you to people that make high school happen that I think sometimes I forget about. And so first of all, obviously students, parents, we just couldn't do this virtual without them. Teachers, I've been here for 21 years. I haven't ever taught anywhere else. And I'm so proud to be a member of this district. I'm so proud to be a member of this staff. I just love doing this job. And I wouldn't imagine myself teaching anywhere else. And so I'm so proud of the staff and the teachers. District leadership has been vital for us to be successful at the high school level. People at central office, you are amazing. And the work that you have done to get us where we are today and to take us where we're going next in a hybrid model or whatever that looks like, I'm so appreciative of district leadership. And then school board, I've talked to many of you. I've seen many of you before at Sumner, and our school board is amazing. You are awesome. You're the coolest group of people I've ever met. And so I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud of the work and support that you give to teachers and students and staff and our families. And I'm just so proud to be working with you and for you here in KCK. I work with Career Tech, so it would be wrong for me not to at least recognize the Diploma Plus and Career Tech team at Central Office. Dr. Stern and Dr. Irvin and the work that Diploma Plus does. We are thriving in a virtual world, and I really thought Career Tech would be so hard, almost impossible to do virtually without our kids having that hands-on work, and our kids just continue to thrive. And that's a result of CTE at Central Office and Diploma Plus continuing to provide us the supports that we need. Mr. Malone is cool, right? Like I put him on the list, right? And, I'm so proud of the building leadership, and they work with us. They check on us, and I just want to push this out to the school board and to those listening. Our district leadership at the building level at Sumner and in every building I hear is really, really concerned about not just my physical well-being, but my mental well-being and the constant check-ins. I'm so proud of the administration for really taking time to make sure that we're all okay, and really reaching out to make sure we're doing great. Dom DeRosa and NEA KCK continues to provide great access to teachers and support staff for the work that they do, and so I'm proud of them. And then on-site staff, secretaries, janitors, they just do the work that goes unnoticed, and I could list a million things that they do well. We just don't have time to do that, but I wanted to make sure to recognize those folks. So we are Career Tech Ed at Sumner Academy, and so many positive things are happening. And so I just wanted to give you some of the insights, but I thought instead of doing that, I would just kind of reach out to those teachers and just give you an opportunity to see what they say. So in business and public administration, they talk about the online textbook that the school board and the district approved for us. Online resources for CTE are critical. And you can see that Ms. Hayden said that in her business communications class, she's able to give direct and immediate feedback. And so she has students take an assessment, a formative assessment, and in real time, she's able to assess how they did, how the class did, if there's reteaching that needs to be done individually or as a group. And that just doesn't happen in a regular classroom. So regular, immediate, real-time feedback with the work that the online books have provided us have been critical. I'm super excited. I teach in the law program, and UMKC this November 4th is offering a Hispanic Law Day. And in the past, we've been able to send 1 or 2 kids there because they try to make sure that every school has a representation. And in a virtual world, I'm happy to report we're sending 20 kids to that conference. They're going to be able to interact, participate in mock trial, attend actual law school classes, have breakout sessions with attorneys and network. And we are able to send 20 kids, and they're going to thrive. And I can't tell you, this is a Saturday, and high school kids don't like to do anything on a Saturday, and they're all signed up and they're all going, and I'm super proud of them. So that's kind of what's happening in business and public administration. We are right by the art department, and I just can't feel like I need to leave the art department out. Art is so great. They do such a good job in the virtual world using Flipgrid, using document cameras, using Google Sites, and reflection is really important in the IB program. And so allowing kids to create art and then reflect on it, the Visual and Fine Arts Department just produces amazing work. So too much to the point that they actually sent me some amazing work that I want to share with you. And again, remember, this is instruction that's happening at the virtual level, and then kids at home are producing this work. So let me show you some of the fine art work that we received. So these are 8th grade projects, and just an outstanding use of just basically looking at an object from top down, from above, and with very good instruction on the virtual side from the teacher. These students were able to go home, stay home, create this, and then send this back and put it in a virtual like photo library. It looks like a museum that you can walk by and see all of the artwork. And these are 8th grade projects. These are IB art projects. These are seniors that produce IB art projects for us. Again, with great instruction in the IB, they're able to, at home, get the supplies that they needed. Again, great job by our administration and our art department in getting supplies safely to kids through pickup, curbside pickup. And they're able to produce just this beautiful artwork. And I'm so proud of all of them. We have a teaching program. We're growing teachers here that I hope will stay in the district and continue to strengthen the teaching program here. And they just thrive on this. Listen, we are in a pandemic, right? And these teachers are able to now instruct these kids on what it would be like if they had to teach in a virtual learning environment. And they are creating all kinds of wonderful teaching opportunities. K-State Step Up continues to surprise and support us with all kinds of interaction between the College of Education and our high school teaching students. They use Flipgrid, Zoom, Adobe Spark, Kami, Jamboards, Wiser Me, and they're doing the work that is truly, truly outstanding and creating our teachers of tomorrow in a virtual setting. This is some examples of some of the teacher work that's been produced. All of this is being produced digitally using all of those platforms. And these are all kid produced through a virtual environment. And you can see that they are learning the skills. I even see some things that I saw there from like ed school days, like Vygotsky and Piaget. And they're really doing that great work. So kudos to the teaching team. They're even creating resumes for you. So the HR folks to take a look, right? We've got our teachers creating resumes. So you can see what they like and how they interact. And again, really making that social connection to the importance of building relationships for teachers and students. We have a very strong Project Lead the Way relationship in biomedical and computer software and programming and engineering. This group of people really does require hands-on learning. Project Lead the Way is built for kids to use manipulatives, and our staff has really thrived here. We are able to produce an engineering, a computer software program, and a bioscience program that is second to none in a virtual environment. Our kids are thriving because they absolutely are getting great instruction because of the resources that have been provided by the district. Things like Onshape for CAD drawing, things like MIT App Inventors that the district purchased for them. And so Mr. Gibson even wanted me to show you a video where kids were singing the parts of the body, which I couldn't do that. So, but Project Lead the Way is thriving and doing really well. We have over 150 kids in this program. So I want to show you some of the projects that they have produced, again, at home. The computer software that you see at the bottom, these two items here, this one in the corner and this one in the corner, these are keychains that are made by students who are coding at home and then sending that to the teacher in the lab. And then the 3D printer is creating that. And so these are student created without them actually being in the classroom. Our architecture students in engineering are building with materials they have at home what look to be designer homes. And then I'm so excited because our kids are building bridges in the engineering program that are actually going to compete this weekend at the KU School of Design competition. We have never been in this competition, and Mr. Todd is really excited about the fact that we are sending some great designs that were, again, manufactured at home, and then we'll be able to compete at the university against other schools. So that's awesome. And so with that said, again, we are thriving, and I'm so proud of the CTE department. I'm so proud of Sumner. I'm so proud of all the staff there, because we're not going anywhere, right? We're here, we're doing the work, and I'm super proud, and I'm honored to talk to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gunter. That was truly impressive, all of the presentations. And as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, leave it to a teacher to take a pandemic and turn it into an opportunity and be thinking ahead of what things we're going to keep, because it's giving us opportunities to reach out people and places and do things that we wouldn't be able to go to or do otherwise. Thank you so much. This was just amazing, and just a little piece of what's happening in many of our schools. So I truly appreciate taking the time to come share all of that with us. It was wonderful. We're going to move right along, and I have an introduction to make to the board and everyone who's watching. I'm so proud to introduce Dr. Jaquita Laurie. She's new to our team, lifelong resident of Kansas City, Kansas. Her whole educational journey has taken place in our district, graduated from FL Schlegel, and now she's back to us and has been a teacher in our district, has acquired additional experience in a neighboring district, now came back. She's also an adjunct professor for the University of Phoenix and Avila University, has earned 5 college degrees and studied at various universities, including Howard University and Harvard University Graduate School of Education. So we are super proud to count her as our Director of Special Ed now. And I would like to invite Dr. Laurie to step up and say a few words to our board.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. I just first want to start expressing my gratitude to the board president, Mr. Lopez, vice president, Ms. Page, all of the board members, our district leaders. I am so grateful for this opportunity to return home to my community, where I live, where I've raised my family, where my children have received their education. I'm so excited to be able to lead in this capacity the work that needs to be done to move our special education department forward and provide the services and the support our students and families so very much deserve. And so I'm honored to be here. I am excited to meet all of the staff members and to be accepted back home to work and serve in this community. So thank you so much.
Welcome, Dr. Laurie. We are very happy to have you. Looking forward to our work together. Now we have a few recognitions. We have the High School Coach of Significance Award. Wyandotte High School soccer coach Josh Wickler has been scoring goals for his players for years, and now he's being honored for all of his hard work. He's with us tonight, so can I ask you to say a couple of words also?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Miguel, and thank you, board. It was an honor and it was a surprise to receive this award. Because like I said, I've been working with my players. I've been working with a great staff of coaches and a great staff at Wyandotte for several years. And so it was a big surprise. And so I'd like to thank my coaches. I'd like to thank Bree Brandenburg, Peter Martinez, and definitely my principal, Mary Stewart, and athletic director, Rufus Black. I think it's the Wyandotte culture that's really helped develop me as a teacher and as a coach. And as I pursued this award, as a teacher, I believe in hope-based storytelling. What I mean by that is our students come to class needing hope. A lot of them come without hope or not knowing what hope is. And so I see it as a teacher and as a coach to let them borrow hope. And what I mean by that is share stories of hopes of people who have been through what they've been through. People like Chris Gardner. The movie Pursuit of Happiness was based on him. And just like I believe my students shouldn't just leave the lessons in the classroom, I want them to share it. I want them to carry it to the soccer field. And so on the soccer field, I encourage my players, you need to have hope. You need to take those lessons you're learning in the classroom and take it out into the field and out to the community. But now that we're in COVID and I lost my spring season, I didn't use that time as a time to say, well, sorry, players, guess we're not playing. We're just going to sit around and do nothing. I looked at it as an opportunity that we need to continue to bring hope to our community. And so during that time, I started a nonprofit called KCK United. And what the goal of that is to give our athletes, once COVID is over, an opportunity to play sports outside of their season. Let students that are interested in playing soccer play no matter how much money they have, no matter whether they can afford it or not, and play it at a high level. And then coaches, be mentors, continually invest in them. And then our students, in turn, I encourage them to serve their community. Each of them are to serve their community because their community is giving to them. And I don't want them just to pick up trash or serve food. I want them to serve in ways that break their heart. And so I want to find out what breaks their heart, and then I want them serving in that place, because our students need to be lifelong servants of their community. And so again, board, thank you for this award. And I'd like to thank my staff once again for all of their support.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wickler. And now we're going to end with your voice vote. So we all know the importance of voting and making the decisions that you feel are best, and it's all about education. So we want to thank the group of high school students at Schlegel that have spent the past months getting people educated on voting, and also for the efforts going on at Wyandotte High School. First, it was all about registering people for this election. Now it's all about education and making sure to be there on November 3rd. So on with us today is Ms. Dinkins from Wyandotte High School to share with us a little bit about the efforts going on. Ms. Dinkins?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, board. Thank you, board and Dr. Miguel, for allowing me to share with you about what the students at Suite 1886, the co-working space at Wyandotte High School within HBS, are accomplishing during remote learning. Students have identified their audience and created admin-approved communications that required immediate consideration. Although none of the students that are working on the project are eligible to vote due to their age, they displayed civic engagement by encouraging their peers to vote, were socially responsible, and have the opportunity to have a real work experience as youth election workers through the Student Serve program at the Wyandotte County Election Office. I would like to take this time to share student perspective with you. This is a comment from one of our students. The communications department has worked with our students on social media campaign in regards to the program, and this is what one of the students had to say. I am pretty excited to see with my own eyes the voting process. I've never seen it before, so it's interesting to see how it goes. Maybe I'll learn more tips for when I go vote myself one day. Thank you again, Dr. Pitch and Mrs. Stewart, for allowing us to color outside of the lines.
Great. Thank you so much. And everybody, get out and vote on November 3rd. And I think this is all for now. I have lots of other things to share, but I'm trying to be aware of the time. So I'm going to save some for the next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Dr. Miguel. And I just, on behalf of the board, I just want to say thank you to all of our staff that presented tonight. It's truly an honor to have all of you here with us tonight and to share all the great things that are going on. We appreciate hearing the great things that are happening in our district and the positive notes. I know oftentimes we focus on the challenges, and that's rightfully so that we can address those things. But it's great to hear about the good things that are happening in the classrooms during remote learning and the positive feedback that you all are getting. And so I really appreciate your time tonight. It's truly an honor to hear from all of you, and we look forward to continuing to support you all. So thank you, Dr. Miguel, for inviting them to be a part of tonight's meeting. And And yeah, keep up the great work, everybody. I'll just really briefly just want to also just say thank you to Crystal Watson and the Kansas City, Kansas Foundation for Excellence, who had their State of the District this morning. So hopefully you got a chance to catch that. So on behalf of the board, we were a part of that as well. And Dr. Miguel also gave some remarks. So thank you to the Foundation for Excellence for your great work, to your board members, and to Crystal Watson for the work and the partnership that we have with the district. And then also, I just also want to thank, I know we have Dr. Jason Thompson with us and Dr. Kelly Charles who are with us, and want to thank them for their amazing work that they've done with our district in your time with us. So thank you, and just wanted to acknowledge you as well. And as Dr. Miguel said, everyone make sure you're getting out there to vote if you have not already. So with that, unless there are other board members that had anything to share.
I just want to say thank you for those who put together the ribbon cuttings these past couple of weeks. They were excellent. I really appreciated the structure and organization and just allowing us to be able to celebrate our schools in the midst of the pandemic, to ensure that we properly acknowledged the building names and the history of it, as well as what the work that it took to actually get them complete. So I'm so excited for those ribbon cuttings. So thank you for everybody who worked hard to put them together. It was excellent. So thank you so much.
And I would like to say thank you to everyone who presented this evening and letting us know what is going on in the schools. And I would like to see us to continually do this each and every board meeting so that we will know the successes, and not just us, but for our community. Thank you, everyone.
And Mr. Lopez, I'd like to say that I have enjoyed the invitations that have been extended from our preschools. I've been able to pop into 2 of our preschools on Zoom, and I have enjoyed the circle time with them and seeing for myself how much our children are learning through the virtual learning. It has been marvelous.
Thank you all. And yeah, special shout out to Mr. Edwin Birch and your communications team, because you all have been doing an amazing job keeping us going and with the ribbon cuttings, like Dr. Yeager said. So thanks for pointing that out, Dr. Yeager. Edwin, kudos to you and your team. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. We will continue on with our agenda. Next up, we have our board updates, and first, our information about Kansas City teacher residency.
Yes, so Dr. Nightbeck.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Ronald Nightbeck, and I have the opportunity to introduce you guys to the Kansas City Teacher Residency Program. It is a pipeline program to attract a diverse set of teachers to our district, which is an initiative of ours within the HR department and as the recruiting team. Just for informational purposes, this is a first read. There is no action that has to happen this evening. And this is when they ask about cost and they associate the cost will be associated to the 2021-2022 school year. So have that in consideration as well. I do have Andrew Stewart on the line with us, who is going to do a 15-minute presentation on the Kansas City teacher residency. So I will go ahead and have him speak.
Good evening. I'm very much appreciative of the opportunity to share a little bit about the program that I work for and what I think is a potential opportunity for partnership between our organization and the district. Dr. Nightbeck, can I presentation?
Mm-hmm. Yep, you should be able to share your screen.
Great. All right. I will try to keep things moving as quickly as possible to make sure that there's the opportunity for any questions that feel relevant towards the end. The Kansas City Teacher Residency, as has already been mentioned, is a teacher preparation and development program that seeks to find individuals within the community that want to join the workforce as an educator and train and develop them, as well as certify them and provide them with a master's degree in order to help ensure that the students of our community have high quality educators in front of them day in and day out. As we move through this presentation, if there's any opportunity for questions, please don't hesitate to have me stop and I will do my best to answer those as we go. I wanted to start really quickly with two individuals here. The individual on the left is Nicholas Collins. The individual on the right is Vernon Birmingham. I'll come back around to them at the end, but they are both graduates of the Kansas City, Kansas School District, and ultimately I think are good examples of why this partnership is something that would be a good opportunity for all involved. I'm going to touch really quickly. These next 3 slides don't share anything that everyone on this call doesn't already know, but as an organization, KCTR believes that teachers matter. We know that there's a ton of research that suggests that teachers are the single biggest factor in student achievement in the classroom. Regardless of resources, regardless of the quality of the building, regardless of all of the different factors that can go into a student's experience, we know that the quality and the excellence of the teacher in front of them is the single biggest indicator of student success. With more effective teachers, students learn more. We also know that there's a need both in the Kansas City metro area as across the entire United States for more high quality teachers. We also know that research tells us that having representation within the teaching force matters. When you have a community and classrooms full of students who identify as individuals of color, we know that it matters to have teachers who also identify as people of color in front of them. We know that teachers of color boost academic performance. We know that students of color and white students report having positive perception of those teachers and feeling cared for when academically challenged. And we know that a greater diversity of teacher helps mitigate feelings of isolation, frustration, fatigue, and a number of other negative emotions that some students will feel in the classroom. And so we know we need more teachers. We know those teachers need to be more diverse. The last thing I'll note here is, again, not new information, but we know that teacher turnover costs districts a lot of money. Replacing teachers, training teachers, and doing recruitment for teachers is expensive. And so we need not only for teachers to come into classrooms, to be high quality, to be diverse, but we also need them to stay. And so as an organization, KCTR is attempting to provide a solution for all of these different components simultaneously. We're a 1-year residency program that's followed by a multi-year commitment to teach in the Kansas City metro area. Again, as I mentioned before, we recruit, develop, place, and work to retain mission-oriented individuals who want to make a deep commitment to working in high-need urban schools throughout the Kansas City area. We're also an AmeriCorps program. Currently, we operate in several schools and charter management organizations throughout the Missouri side of the Kansas City area, and we work with a ton of different contexts as well as different types of schools. I just want to speak for a few moments about how our program actually functions. So during the first year of our program, entrance into our program, people come in, they work as a resident for that year, they serve in a classroom alongside a mentor teacher. During that year, they move from doing a lot of observation at the beginning of the year to working primarily as a co-teacher towards the middle sections of the year to ultimately taking over portions of the class towards the end of the year, with that mentor teacher still being in the room and providing feedback as well as just sort of observing and making sure that things continue to happen the way that they're supposed to. We call this a residency because it's similar to a medical residency, the same way that a presiding doctor would oversee the work of a medical resident. They're offered the opportunity to work with patients, but aren't given full responsibility because the safety and success of that medical process is critical. We take the same approach to our residency. On Mondays of every week, residents spend that time with us going through certification coursework and pedagogy coursework that allows them to be certified at the conclusion of the year, as well as prepares them to finish a master's degree during the second year of the program. The other 4 days out of the week, they're on school sites working alongside that mentor teacher. The second and third year of the program, they work as full-time teachers within a school district or partner school. They're hired on as full-time staff members and they teach during that time. That first, second, third, and fourth year are contractual commitments that resident makes when they join our program. Beyond that, they continue to receive support from us as alumni. And throughout the first, second, third, and fourth year of the program, they receive instructional coaching from our team. During that fifth year, they get a lot of resources as network participants, opportunities for PD and things like that. I'll just really briefly touch on this. Our goal is to recruit, coach, develop, and provide a network. I mentioned before that we provide instructional coaching for all of our participants. We also really believe that on the partner side of things, and I'll talk a little bit about a couple of these things in just a moment, but we believe our goal and our outcome for our partners is that we're going to increase the teacher quality, we're going to increase the teacher retention, increase diversity, and we're going to generate financial savings because they're not consistently replacing individuals who are participating through our program and landing in the classroom as a result of being KCTR residents. These are just some quick numbers that I'll just glance over here. You have them available for your own perusal at your own leisure. 88% is a number that I'll draw attention to. That's our retention across cohorts 1 through 4. I won't belabor the point that a lot of people enter the teaching profession and don't spend much time there and ultimately leave. That's probably something most of us are aware of. But 88% is a retention rate that's a lot higher than what you would typically see from a traditional 4-year institution, followed by starting in a district or a charter school. There's 137 graduates of our program that are teaching throughout the Kansas City area. Those two numbers underneath that, in terms of the percentage of our cohorts that identify as people of color and as men, while those percentages are not as high as we ultimately would like them to be and aren't as high as we're aiming for, they do dramatically outpace the numbers that are typically generated through traditional education programs and are far in advance of what we usually see coming out of universities. 90% of our participants are Kansas City natives. We're not going outside of the area to recruit people, and the vast majority of them are career changers. I hold that up because we're not talking about young people that are just leaving the college classroom, don't have any life experience. We're talking about individuals that have something special to bring to kids who have had a professional career already most of the time and know how to show up day in, day out for children because they've already done that in a professional context. The number of information on the right just kind of gives a bit of an insight into our scope. In terms of the ask for partners, we've already had a bit of an intro for this, but we ask for $15,000 per resident. That we ask for a deposit to hold the partnership. We ask for continuous collaboration from our partners. That involves supporting us in recruiting residents. Oftentimes and I can elaborate on this at a later time, but we oftentimes recruit from paraprofessional pools because oftentimes schools already have individuals in their buildings that would make excellent teachers, but just don't have a pathway towards certification and a teaching role. We ask for support in placement and development. We continuously work alongside principals as well as other individuals of administrative staffs, instructional coaches, and the like to ensure that residents are on track, or once somebody has finished the residency and is installed as a full-time teacher, that their development as a teacher is on track so that kids can get what they deserve. We ask for support along mentor-teacher selection and development. We provide every mentor teacher that participates with our program $3,000. I think it's been really interesting to be a part of this call this evening and see that there are a number of amazing teachers already working in KCK that could, for example, serve as amazing mentor teachers to help develop a new generation of teachers for the district. In that situation, they would receive compensation as well as training and development from KCTR. And we also ask for support in resident hiring. Clear lines of communication between us principals helps us ensure that individuals who finish our program are getting hired into positions that they want to be in, and that principals are hiring the individuals that they want. The most important thing here is that we have a shared vision for equity in education, that all kids deserve the opportunity to have a great education, and we know that that comes by having a great teacher. This slide in particular, I will just sort of touch on. These are two examples of two districts that we work with on the Missouri side and the return on investment that we've generated for those partners over that time. You'll notice that based on the number of placed and paid for residents that's in the top row versus the number of completed residents, there are at times residents that are placed within a district that don't finish the program, and we consider that healthy attrition. But I will note, we don't charge partners if someone doesn't finish the year. If someone doesn't complete the program and are eligible for hire, we return most of or a prorated portion of that fee. So we're ensuring that if somebody's coming through the program, that the district is only paying for people that are ultimately being hired and placed within the district. And you'll notice across that bottom band in the hired, POC, and male categories, we've managed to generate a pretty diverse and successful pool of candidates to be hired into our school partner sites. I'll note that in one of those cells, the hired for partner district 2, the number there, the percentage is more than 100%. And that's because districts that participate with us as partners have the opportunity to hire residents that aren't hired by other districts or charters. Sometimes a charter will train and develop somebody, just not have an opening for that person. And that person then is eligible for hire elsewhere. So that second partner district has not only hired as many residents as they've paid to train, but they actually have hired more residents than that. Because they've had the opportunity to reach into that pool and hire out of our group and our network. 3 quick notes here. Partnership fee, that $15,000 goes directly into our program for purposes of recruitment, paying for our instructional coaches, paying for the development the residents receive, and supporting network events and experiences so the residents can continue to develop through our program. I won't touch on all of these. I will just note one that I consider to be particularly important, and that's the one that's in the middle of the top row. We're not a program that's going to put teachers in your school tomorrow. We're not a program that's going to put teachers in your school next year. We're a program that's designed to generate a long runway so that when people arrive in a classroom in front of kids day one as a full-time teacher of record, they know what they're doing, and they're providing kids with the education that they deserve. I don't know about everyone else on this call. I was a first-year teacher once. I was underprepared. We believe that that's not always the case, but we believe that our model helps support individuals in arriving at the classroom ready to teach and ready to present kids with the opportunities to learn that they deserve, rather than practicing on kids or sort of learning and failing throughout that experience. That long runway is critical to that experience and that success because they learn, develop, and fail at times under the guidance of a mentor teacher rather than when they're out on their own. And we believe that this model ultimately produces individuals who are going to stay in the profession longer because they experience success from day one. There's a couple of quotes here. I won't read out for you. We have really strong relationships with our partner sites and districts. We have returning partner districts year over year who continue to participate with our program, not only because of that ROI, but because on an anecdotal and individual level, they believe that the program works. And I'll end here with our connection to KCK. The gentleman on the left-hand side, Nicholas Collins, is an individual that approached me 2 years ago and applied for the program. Nicholas is a graduate of KCK. He's part of the community. He enjoys his time spent in that community. And when we initially spoke, what he wanted to do was to teach in KCK. Our program doesn't have the ability to do that at the time because at the time we weren't a certifying body in the state of Kansas. We don't have a partnership or relationship with KCK. Nicholas is a certified teacher teaching science at Lincoln College Prep in KCPS, and he's also a department chair. When I reached out to him and asked him about the possibility of partnering with KCK, the amount of enthusiasm he had for that is palpable. I offer him up as an example of what's possible through a partnership here. Individuals who are committed to the community, want to serve their community, want to give back, and are just looking for a pathway to that. The gentleman on the right is our manager of talent and placement, Vernon Birmingham, also a graduate of KCK, also somebody that cares deeply about his community. He's an example of what can happen when people go into our organization and continue to carry a torch for the community that they're from. Vernon's excitement about the possibility of partnering with KCK, again, palpable. And as the leader of our recruitment efforts, I believe he offers an example of a reason our recruitment efforts within the district to bring people either living in the community already into the program or to bring people who have been a part of the community previously back into the community to teach will be successful. I want to pause there and just offer the opportunity for any questions that anyone may have and kind of give space for that.
Hey, Andrew, this is Dr. Stacey Yeager. I'm so excited to finally see this. I remember when I first saw the ad on Facebook, I reached out and said, why aren't you guys in our district?
Yeah.
So, question for the leaders, or maybe you can answer this. We do have a fellows program. Mm-hmm. And so if you could help me understand the difference between this and the fellows program, yes, it would help me a little more to know the difference between the two. Second, recruiting. So we do strive hard to do the recruiting for the fellowship program. So fellows program. So how is the recruiting a little different for you guys? That's the second. Last question I have is what do you see is different in this virtual environment? Are you able to still get people who are ready to jump on board or transition? What is the interest that you've seen this year as it relates to this program? And that's my 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yeager, for those questions. 3 really, really important ones. The first I should have noted before, the critical difference between our program and the fellows program is our program is focused on elementary and possibly middle school. So we'd be looking to place residents in elementary classrooms and develop them for that purpose. We've talked about the option of middle school as well, but the focus would be predominantly in elementary as well as early childhood. So we're not trying to necessarily play in the same sandbox, so to speak. We know that the district has the fellows program, and we hope that continues to be successful. We actually don't currently certify for high school or secondary. So we think there's enough of a gap there that we'd be able to operate simultaneously. On the recruitment front, I think, what I would just say there is we use a lot of different mechanisms. As you noted before, we use digital advertising. We do some work. We've had billboards downtown before. We do college level recruitment work that we believe is pretty effective. The single largest mechanism that we leverage is word of mouth. We work really hard to ensure that participants and entrants into our program refer people that they believe will be good fits for our program back to our organization. Along with that, the other two mechanisms that are very similar is we leverage a lot of community organizations or sort of partner orgs. The Kauffman Foundation has a number of other organizations that they've supported us in partnering with, whether it's City or Literacy Lab, which are organizations that already do a lot of recruitment work and have national recruiting arms that may bring people to the area. And then once those people have put roots down, we'll consider recruiting them if they're committed to staying in Kansas City long term. Similarly, with organizations like KSI, those are opportunities for us to talk to individuals who have roots here in Kansas City who may be on college campuses elsewhere and are looking for an opportunity to return home and give back. The last piece on that front is, I mentioned this before, a huge percentage of the individuals that we recruit come from within schools that we partner with. So maybe a paraprofessional. Vincent Gunnels is an example that I oftentimes lift up. Security guard at Northeast Middle School in KCPS. He now is an English teacher in Northeast Middle School in KCPS. He did his residency there, and he ultimately became a teacher there because he, in his capacity as a security guard, felt like he could be more of service to students by being a classroom teacher instead of supporting students when they were asked to leave the classroom. And there's lots of examples like that throughout our organization. But the biggest thing I would say is once we get to working with principals, they know what our program's about. And most importantly, they know who already has a heart for their kids. And oftentimes, the biggest gap between a paraprofessional and someone who is a certified teacher is a piece of paper and the training that goes with that, rather than the desire or the passion for students. And we hope to provide that certification and training and support them in getting there. On that last piece, the virtual component, I continue at the director level to oversee Vernon's work in recruitment. It's tough, I won't lie. People, I think, feel anxiety about education right now. Reentry policies are a constant source of discussion online as well as in the media. I think the uncertainty around the election next week has generated additional uncertainty. All of that said, our recruitment numbers this year match our recruitment numbers last year. And we anticipate that we'll ultimately be able to fill the cohort with people that are passionate and want to make a difference. And I think more than anything, COVID has offered a lens into the need. When people don't have strong schools to send their students to, that makes things difficult for everyone in the community. And that's a fact that remains unchanged. So I wish there was an easier answer on that piece. Our program has been adaptive and worked really hard to ensure that we can continue to certify, continue to train and develop virtually. We know that next year is going to be tough on some of our teachers because they're going to be moving into an in-person environment after teaching online. But we believe that we're going to continue to be successful. And there's a lot of evidence from surveys that we're giving residents that would indicate the same.
This is Dr. Nguyen. I have about 4 questions for you, Mr. Stewart. Do you want them all at once or one at a time?
Whichever you'd prefer.
First, is the $15,000 a one-time cost?
Yes, it's a one-time fee that the district pays. There's no follow-up fee for continued support. So we have, for example, SVN, it's a charter school here in Kansas City. On the Missouri side, they paid for a resident to train that person and didn't pay for a resident to train the following year. They still continue to receive coaching support for that resident who they paid the fee for the first year. So that continues in perpetuity beyond that first year. It's a one-time fee.
So we could pay a $15,000 cost and that person actually be hired by another district?
Great question. So the answer to that is no. Residents have a contractual obligation to us to remain with the partner district that trains them if offered a contract. If they break that, then they're exited from the program. So right of first refusal lives with the district for the duration of that first year. After that, after the first year as teacher of record, if they choose to move on, then that gets a little choppier. I would tell you, generally speaking, most residents, once they make it through their first year as teacher of record, so their second year with the program, tend to stay with the district that trained, developed, and hired them. But they are contractually obligated to stay for that first year. They don't have a choice about that piece. The district doesn't have an obligation to hire, however. I realize that may sound a little bit unfair, but
no, it's very clear, because if they decide to quit after the year,
exactly,
that $15,000 was used in the first year.
Exactly.
You say did I understand you are not operating in Kansas? Explain that a little bit better.
Yes, ma'am. So we have, prior to this year, not applied for or asked for the right to certify in the state of Kansas. That's going to change. So there's a sheet at the very end of the slide deck that just references where we're currently at. We've received assurances from the licensure office, state of Kansas, that we're going to move forward as a certifying body, and that we'll be allowed to certify in the state of Kansas. This would be the first year that we would do that. I probably should have mentioned this before. Our hope is that KCK will act as the anchor district and sort of not pilot, but the beginning district for our work in Kansas. I say it's not a pilot because we know what we're doing. We've been doing this for 5 years, albeit in Missouri and not in KCK. And I recognize that there are absolutely differences in every context in every district. But we would be moving over the matrices, the training protocols, all of the coursework, the coaching structures, our relationship protocols, a lot of institutional knowledge that we know is successful over into Kansas throughout that process. But to answer your question directly, we have not previously worked in Kansas. This would be our first year, the upcoming.
And is that a requirement for the state of Kansas Department of Education to have an anchor host?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they want us to have districts in mind. But it's not at all. Our ability to certify in Kansas is not contingent on already having an agreed upon district partner.
And how do you differ from Teach for America program?
That is a phenomenal question. And I would argue I'm probably unique. I don't know about uniquely. I should be able to answer that because I'm a product of TFA, albeit in New Orleans, not here. I mentioned it already. The long runway is the single biggest difference. When I started teaching as a Teach for America Corps member, I had 5 weeks of training. I trained in Atlanta, shipped back to New Orleans, and began teaching that summer in August. Had no experience whatsoever beyond that 5 weeks, had no context. I don't mean to deride the program. It is what it is. But the reality of it is I was not doing right by the students I had for that first year. And without the support of mentor teachers around me, informal mentoring, some formal mentoring, and a lot of coaching that I was fortunate to receive because I was in a school site that had those resources, I would not have ever done right by my students. Our program is designed to do something that's very different than that. Our program is not designed to bring people from all over the country, drop them in your school district for 2 years, and then watch them go on their way. Our program recruits from the communities that we serve, and we put people back into schools, oftentimes that either they attended, sometimes that their children are attending. And the long runway of our program is designed not only to ensure that people are effective the first day they're in front of students, but equally important, I would argue, that they're prepared to stay in the profession long term. I had a principal tell me once that people don't necessarily leave teaching because they're burnt out due to the workload. They oftentimes leave because they feel like they're failing kids. And so the goal of our program is to ensure that individuals don't feel that way because they're not failing kids, because they're affected by the time they have the responsibility to lead a classroom. There's lots of other differences, but I would consider those to be the two biggest, which is that we have a very different training structure and that we're recruiting locally. I should mention too, as was alluded to before, we can provide a lot of certainty around the district's investment, not the least of which we don't ask for funds for individuals that we don't produce. And I do not mean that as derisive again. I know Chris and those guys, but we're structured in a very different way. Does that answer the question?
Sure. So that if after the first 15,000 that is given to you and the teacher is then hired, that of course is our cost. And then you mentor year 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So thank you. And so I guess my question to Dr. Knight is how then similar to Dr. Yeager's question, how does that interface with what we already have?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're alluding to the Fellows Program, correct? Yeah, so it's additional pipeline. What I think is what this pipeline is offering is more of a local-based recruitment, which I think is one of the board to make sure we're hiring people from our community, and then the additional of the support and the guarantee of the 4-year program. So that's an investment that doesn't come with the Fellows Program. We do have a high retention rate, and the Fellows Program is a great program. It's just offering another pipeline for us getting a diverse staff and keeping them for long term.
However, could one consider this duplication?
I think it could be a duplication of what we're trying to produce.
Alternative licensing.
Right. It is, but it's a preference too of who feels comfortable going through which program, and now we're taking advantage of both pipelines rather than just the one.
Okay, and then the commitment of teaching in this program seems to be, in my opinion, somewhat out of balance from what I've discussed and some of us discussed before as clawback of funding for high need in the fellows program, where you're requiring a 2, 3 year 2, 3, and 4 commitment from these teachers, but you're not requiring a commitment from the fellows program. There just seems to be a little bit of inconsistency, and I don't know if we would want to have that inconsistency. Meaning, if we're going to do both, then you may have to make them mirror each other a little closer, in my opinion.
I think that's a great suggestion, and we can look into that. Thank you.
So what is your ask? You referenced year 2021, 22. What is the real story?
So the ask here is a $60,000 commitment for 4 individuals for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you.
So thank you all for the questions. Thank you, Dr. Knight, Mr. Stewart, for the presentation. If you have further questions, I think as Dr. Knight said, there's no action tonight. This was informational. You have the slide deck that's in the board docs that's been provided to you all. So please go back and review that. If you have additional questions, please send those to Ms. Page and myself and Dr. Miguel, and we can make sure that we send those to the appropriate persons to get answered for you. So again, thank you everybody for the information. Dr. Knight and Mr. Stewart, appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Knightbeck, sorry. And now we have the reentry. The Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education accept as an informational item an update of the school reentry plan as submitted by Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, Mr. Lopez. Good evening, Ms. Page. Good meeting. It is a good meeting. Good evening to the board and to Dr. Miguel. I just wanted to take some time tonight to give you an update on where we are with our reentry. And so I'm going to share my screen with you. If you give me just 1 second. Hopefully you can all see the screen. I know Dr. Miguel shared a draft of this with you on her Friday updates, so I hope you had a chance to look through it, but I'm going to go through it tonight with you as well. So to get us started, I just wanted to take a minute to remind all those who are present of the board's decision on October 13 to postpone the return of students until January. I know although that is a difficult decision to make, it was one that ensures both the safety of our students and the safety of our staff. So thank you all for your commitment to that. When we return in January, we will be doing a staggered start, and that all essential school staff will return on Monday, January 4th. And I know Dr. Miguel made reference to other staff who may be asked to come in. And so those who are not being asked to come in will continue to come back on January 4th and continue to teach in a remote learning environment. So after winter break, just as a reminder, students will continue with remote learning, which will also start back up on Monday, January 4th. So get that clarification out as well. We know that early childhood through second grade students will start on Tuesday, January 19th in a hybrid model. And then all remaining students in 3rd through 12th grade will return to hybrid learning starting the week of Tuesday, January 26th. So one of the things I want to say is we keep saying hybrid learning, but what does that actually mean? And what does that look like in a hybrid learning model? So a hybrid learning model is one that blends both online remote learning with opportunities for students to also receive in-person instruction. Within the hybrid learning model, the number of students is reduced approximately 50%, So students reporting on a given day for in-person learning. By limiting the number of students in the building to 50%, we're helping to ensure that we are reducing the spread of COVID-19. And also within the hybrid model, you have approximately 50% of your students who will be part of an AA group, and the other 50% will be part of a BB group. And I'll explain that more in just a second. As we have mentioned in all of our plans to this point, families who are still concerned about sending their students back to school for in-person learning will still have the opportunity to opt out of returning to school and can still receive their education through remote learning. So on the next few slides, you're going to see what the schedule looks like for the different student groups that were just mentioned, as well as what we are going to do with teachers and who's going to be designated for hybrid learning, as well as those that will be designated for remote. So as you can see on this screen, you've got two different groups. You've got a student AA group and you have a student BB group. And each group will consist of approximately 50% of the student body. As you can see, student AA group will be participating in in-person learning on Mondays and Tuesdays, while group BB will participate in remote learning at home. On Thursday and Friday, the groups will switch, and then group AA will be remote, and then group BB will be in person. Again, as we've mentioned before, Wednesdays are going to be dedicated to remote learning for both groups of students. This will allow for our custodial staff to do a deep clean of the building between the two groups of students. The day will also include scheduled check-ins with students to make sure they understand what the work will be for that day, as well as some opportunities for professional development that has been missed over these last few months of school and definitely needed by our staff. That's feedback that we're receiving from principals and teachers. And so this will give us some time to be flexible. It also provides that opportunity. I think I heard a couple of teachers say that they need a little more time to give that solid feedback as they're grading their assignments. So that'll be provided for students on Wednesdays. Again, when students are at school, all of those safety plans that we presented, I think it was on October 13th, will be followed. And so that'll help limit the spread of COVID-19. Again, along with those student A group and student BB group, you do have a group of students who will have opted out of remote learning. And so therefore, this group of students will continue to receive their education in that setting. You can see their weekly schedule on this slide: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Students will follow their daily schedule as normal, and teachers will continue to follow the guidelines set forth in the KCKPS remote learning plan. To ensure that teachers in the remote learning have an opportunity to plan, provide students with that proper feedback, as well as collaborate with their colleagues, they will follow a similar schedule on Wednesday, where they'll be scheduled check-ins at least once per day, and then asynchronous opportunities that'll be equivalent to the time that kids would need to be working in a classroom setting.
Mr. Anderson, can I ask you a question now?
Yep.
Okay. Now, this is a concern that I've been getting from a lot of teachers. Now, is there a separate, different group of teachers who'll be doing the remote from the teachers who'll be doing the hybrid? It's not the same teacher.
So what I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. Yep. So good question. You're already forecasting ahead. I like it. So that's what the Wednesday. So we do have, as you said, Ms. Page, there will be two groups of teachers as well. One group of teachers will be designated to teaching students in that hybrid learning model. And then the other group will be designated to teaching those students whose families have opted them out of remote learning or opted them out of in-person learning. So you have two different groups of students. Teachers in the hybrid model will be providing students with in-person instruction when students are at school and opportunities for students to engage in asynchronous independent learning opportunities when hybrid students are at home. Live synchronous sessions will be provided for students who are at home to participate in some instruction, as well as check-ins with teachers. So although we will have the hybrid, there will be a few students at home. There'll still be opportunities for them to pop on to get support from their teachers. But those students that are completely remote, they will have a different set of teachers. And so they will only teach the students who have opted out of in-person learning. And they're going to continue to follow, as I mentioned, the KCKPS remote learning plan. And then, as you can see, that Wednesday just kind of shares that both groups of teachers will have scheduled check-ins, and then they'll get that time to plan and give feedback and get some professional development.
So does that mean, again, this is Wanda Brownlee Page, are we hiring more teachers, or you're saying it's going to balance itself out?
It should balance itself out. What we are going to do, and I was going to talk about that on the last slide, we've got some next steps to take care of. One of those is to survey our families to determine how many students we can expect to be needing remote learning. And then that's going to help us make some determinations about what staff we already have in place that can do that remote learning. So that's a great question. So to keep us moving, we do have some considerations to put in place. And those are for those students that we currently know have the highest needs. And, you know, we really want to make sure that we meet their needs in the best way possible. And that may include bringing some students back in person prior to January. And so I have Dr. Lowry, our Executive Director of Special Education, who you met a few minutes ago, and Ms. Rodriguez, our Director of ESL and Migrant Programs. We're going to be sharing our plans for those students, how we're going to meet those students' needs. So the next slide is Dr. Lowry. And Dr. Lowry, when you're ready for me to move to the next slide, just let me know.
Thank you. Good evening again. What I have here in this first slide are just a list of our programs that are serving students that have our highest needs. We talked a lot about CELS and the STEPS, but there are three programs within the CELS, and then we have STEPS, and then we also have considerations for our deaf and hard of hearing students, visually impaired students, and behavior support classrooms, as well as our early childhood special education. So I just wanted to be able to identify the programs that are serving students with our highest needs. Next slide, please. What this slide is about, what I have done is talk with our team, and we have really looked at what will be the safest way to bring back our students. And this first section of this slide, it really talks about testing. We have approximately 246 students that needs to be tested. As you know, the federal guidance did not give us any waivers. And so that was the first order of business that we really need to address so that we are not out of compliance with meeting the evaluation and testing needs of our students. And so we have proposed to allow our school sites and our related service providers to begin on-site testing for special education. These students will be brought in by appointment only. We have identified the schools, talked with the principals and the building leaders, as well as the school sites. And so in collaboration with Elizabeth Morris, our health coordinator, we have a plan to bring the student in for testing, as well as the school sites. So we have clearance for that. Parents are being contacted now to set those appointments up to move forward with our testing, which is very, very critical at this point. And then we decided that we really needed to look at a phased approach with bringing back our students. And so on this middle slide here, we talk about our phase one. We originally were looking at some dates in November to phase in our students. However, there are still some uncleared health and safety protocols that needs to be processed before we can actually put a date to that now. But what that phase one would look like are the CELS students in CELS 3, which are the higher functioning of the CELS program, and then our autism program, and some of our deaf of hard of hearing students, and our ECSC student. We are in the process of talking to parents, getting their input on if they're electing to go ahead and send their students back. We are looking at an AM and a PM session for our teachers to provide live instruction in person to meet the students' needs. And we also have been in communication with teachers who are excited about being able to provide the services that these students really need. We decided to do a phased approach because, as we know, these students have compromised, many of students have compromised immune systems. And so it's very important to watch the data, bring in a certain group of students, watch what is happening in the classroom, monitoring COVID, and working with our department, our health department, and our health coordinator to ensure that we are following those health and safety protocols and that the students are remaining safe. So if we bring those students in, those are students that we believe have more of a capability to wear a mask for that 3-hour block versus our cells 1 and cells 2, which is a part of the phase 2. There's about a 2 to 3 week space between the phases to be able to look at the data and analyze the data before we bring in even our more compromised students far as their health. And so we're gathering all of that data. We have identified a schedule for our teachers that will return, as well as our paraprofessionals that will return to support these students. We have also a timeline for training, so they can go through an orientation with our health department, with our health coordinator around the health and safety protocols, allow them time to go into their classrooms and prepare those rooms for our students, all before they're able, before they come in for the training or before they come in for classes. So far, we have about 55 parents that have already shared with us that they want to come back, have their students come back in person. We're looking at about 66 students in phase 1 and about 41 students in phase 2. We're going to continue to reach out to our families and to get their feedback on their choice if they would like to bring their students back in early. But this is where our plan is currently, to bring our students with our highest needs and our compromised health systems back.
Thank you, Dr. Lavery. We're going to go on to Ms. Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mr. Board President, Madam Vice President, and Board. I would just want to extend a thank you for providing space to give updates on our emergent bilingual and our highest need students. So our ESOL plan is kind of twofold. Similar to special education, we also have to provide some assessment. We have the CALPA-P screener, which is a state-required assessment that needs to be administered when we have students enrolled that indicate that they speak a language other than English. Our teachers worked very hard and diligently to screen as many students virtually and over the phone, following the state guidance to assess students the best that we could with this situation. Unfortunately, the screener really does need to be done in person, and we have about 500 students, whether it was for technology reasons that we couldn't assess them, if it was for they have just recently enrolled, or we couldn't get a clear indication of what their language proficiency was over the phone or through the part of the assessment that we did, that we really need to follow them up face to face. And then again, we would administer these by appointment only. We're looking to utilize sites that are set up currently to bring students in, and coordinating with the special education department to ensure that we're limiting the number of students as well as teachers in a building. And then knowing that our family may need transportation and that support, we'd allow 2 weeks to provide that and set up those appointments. We have currently taken a poll of ESL teachers that would be available. We have a large number of them that are committed to coming back and assisting with that pre-screener with the proper measures and protocol. And then the second part is we have our students that attend the intensive language centers. So those are our ILC kiddos. These are students that have gaps in their formal education or interruptions in their education. And we have 3 locations, Eugene, Ware Central, and Washington. We would want to bring back these 36 students at each site following the hybrid model, 2 days a week, and then increasing the increment of hours after reevaluating every 2 weeks. We would allow for teacher planning. We've already had our first meeting with teachers. All 4 teachers are on board to come back, and we've talked through a schedule that would allow them to come in for a few hours a day to support that learning and then provide professional development. We've also started two-way communication with families, reaching out to them, making phone calls, and ensuring that this is a support that our families need. We've had very good connection with our families using interpreters on our department that have made that contact with them and have received information that families do need that support, especially when it comes to the technology at the high school level. Some of our students that are in the ILC have never been in a formal school and are really struggling with just how to get onto the Chromebook. And then we'll also follow that health and safety clearance. So our plan is very tentative with that. Matt, could you mind going to the next slide? So then some of our next steps after we're able to assess the 500 students that we have, we will still have to maintain appointments for our newly enrolled students. And then we do plan to assess the ILC return weekly. And as we kind of figure out some of those procedures and increment the hours, so it does model the hybrid that we plan to implement in January. And then also looking at some of our other students that may be of high need, and those would be some other newcomer students, setting a second hybrid model on the Thursday, Friday. And then we'll continue as a department to plan what does hybrid instruction look like as we have teachers that push into classrooms and how we'll pull out students from there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Lowry and Ms. Rodriguez. I know that your teams have been working diligently to get all of that planned, and it's taken a lot of time and effort. And so we really do appreciate that. Board, I'd also like to give you a brief update on our connectivity, things that are happening in the district. You know, our continued goal is to guarantee that we break down the connectivity barrier for our families. And so we put a few things in place to help us do that. One of the things that we've done, and you're aware of, is that we've established connectivity hubs at our school buildings, and schools have reached out to the families that they know are struggling with connectivity and inviting them into the buildings to access the internet so their students can engage in learning. We know that we have a lot of families that are signing up. Unfortunately, they sign up, but they're not coming. And so buildings are continuously working with families to make sure that if they've signed up for those times, that we want to make sure that they're still coming and engaging in that work or with the connectivity. I'm going to let Rashid Hoda briefly speak about the hotspots and how those are working and being used. And then I'm going to have Stephen Linkus just briefly discuss where we are with Spectrum. So Rashid or Stephen, if you would mind just sharing a little bit of information, please.
So we have pretty much deployed all the hotspots to the various buildings. We have about 100 left in reserve in case anybody else does need one. And I haven't, since the bandwidth reset on October 14th, I haven't heard of from principals about running out of the data cap.
Okay, thank you, Rashid. Stephen, how would you like to discuss Spectrum, please?
Yeah, we recently got the contracts back today. They were signed by both the state and Spectrum. I know Mr. Goheen was looking at those at language. So we're looking to move forward with that progress and that process.
Mr. Linkus, this is Wanda Brownlee Page.
Yes, ma'am.
Originally, they said, I know there were difficulties. They were going to start in October. Do they still cut it off in December since they got started so late?
Yes, ma'am. The funding is unfortunately only available to the end of the calendar year. So therefore, there's not at this time, there's not an ability to extend it. They are working and looking at the Department of Commerce to see if that opportunity is there, but at this time, it's December 30th.
This is Dr. Nguyen. So Mr. Linkus, do they still get the $800,000 for the 30 days, or will it be 60 instead of 90 days?
I'm not sure the full amount that they'll be getting. I do know that they'll pay the portion that we would be getting through the district. That would be something I would have to follow up on with the Department of Commerce, because that money would not be spent towards us since there was no internet provided.
Well, please do, because I remember them saying the grant was for 800,000.
Yes, ma'am. I'll follow up on that.
I think something else to point out is that the last version, the latest version of the contract agreement that we've received from Spectrum, the way it's worded, the district would be agreeing to a monthly payment of $198,000. My understanding is that the grant monies would cover that, but there is no provision in the agreement that's being offered up that would keep the district off the hook if, for whatever reason, the grant proceeds did not cover that full amount for each of the monthly payments. So it's not exactly as it was originally advertised.
So what we're trying to have, the language we're trying to have them put in the agreement is clearly at no cost to the district, because that is what was discussed from our beginning conversations.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Finally, just wanted to give you a quick update on Canvas. Canvas is going to be up and running for our teachers starting tomorrow. A PD plan, professional development plan, was shared with building principals last week. We know that there's still some concerns about the rollout from teachers and making sure that they still have access to Google Classroom. Google Classroom and Seesaw will still be available, although we're going to move to Canvas. We're going to do it as a soft rollout. It is self-paced learning for the teachers, and so we're not trying to rush that process, knowing that we've got lots of people in different places with their understanding. And so what we're doing is getting teachers ready to be level 1 users and getting them set up with their courses, and then how do they launch it to their students. And so yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of teachers have been emailing, asking, could they start the second semester, and could they be given the flexibility to use what they're already using in addition to that, not just force right into it, because they've had to make so many adjustments already, and provide their flexibility so they could utilize it as well as continue to use what they have, and then make the transition, because they still don't feel that they had the proper training, and they want more training.
So what this will be is it's like I said, it's self-paced, it's asynchronous, so teachers will need the time. And so we've worked with principals to start thinking about how can we provide at least 2 hours a week. It doesn't need to be back to back, but at least 2 hours for teachers to really just get in, watch some of the videos, the startup videos, because it is that self-paced learning, and then allow them to start building things so they're ready to use it second semester. So it doesn't have to be, you have to start using it tomorrow, but if people don't start building things, they won't be ready for second semester. So this will allow them to learn and apply that learning into their modules on Canvas.
And then one other comment on the connectivity. Have we straightened out our phone system so people can get through and talk to someone? We don't necessarily have an operator every day. And when people are calling, if you don't know who you need to speak with and their number, you get cut off. That's it. That's the end of your call. So has that situation been corrected? Because some people are still complaining.
Yes, and Mr. Hoda is working on what we recently requested from departments is to give us the specific number that the call would be routed to. And Mr. Hoda is working on creating the system that, for example, will say, if you would like to speak with HR, press 1. With special ed, press 2. And a request that we have asked department leaders is to designate a number that where there will either be someone always there to answer the phone, or somebody who will be monitoring the voicemail system so that it's never full and that calls are returned within 24 hours. So that's in motion right now. And Mr. Hoda had to do a little bit of research to see, did we have the capability? And he came back to me with yes. And when you reported that, Ms. Page, I tried myself, and of course they answered the phone. And then I said, I'm going to call again. Do not answer, because I wanted to see what happened. And just like you described it, it cut me off. So we are working on that, and it should be fixed within a few days. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, how will you train parents to use Canvas?
So that I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I know that Julie Leach is working with some of our partnering, I'll call them partnering districts, some of the districts around us to determine what's the best way to do that. We know that we have opportunities to make some videos and place them on our website, and then also working with our ESL department to help get that word out on those on-track videos. But I'm gonna write your question down and get back to you on that, Dr. Nguyen. That's a great question. We need them to understand how to use it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Yolanda. I have a question on the hybrid module. So I understand the students will be AA and BB, and I understand we will have virtual teachers, and I understand we will have in-person teachers. Will the teachers also be assigned to a group, or will that same teacher be group A and group BB?
So want to make sure that I understood you. So the teacher that's designated to hybrid will be monitoring students in group AA and group BB.
Okay. No, you did answer my question. And I'm sure you all are talking about like how to keep those teachers protected since they will be interacting with both groups of students.
Yep. And so we're actually, that's going to be on my next slide to talk about some next steps that we're taking to get all that figured out. So you guys are really good tonight about keeping me on track and keeping me moving forward. But yes, so some of the next steps. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is we need to survey families to determine which ones will be opting in for in-person and opting out for in-person. So that's one of our next steps. That's going to help us determine numbers for which students will be participating in AA group and BB, as well as the remote. And then those survey results will also help us work with the HR department to determine which teachers would be designated to hybrid and which ones will be designated for remote. So that's one of the steps we're taking moving forward. Another step is we want to reconvene some groups of early childhood through 12th grade administrators, teachers, and other stakeholders to help iron out some of those details that you were wondering about, Ms. Clark. We want to make sure that we have the best plan. I think Mr. Malone from Sumner said we've got a little bit more work to do to just make sure that before we put out a plan, that it's ironed out with the best details. So we make sure that, like you said, we're protecting our teachers in that work. Another thing that we need to do, as you know, second quarter is kind of a crazy quarter when we return. When we return back to hybrid learning, the first 2 weeks are 4-day school weeks. And so a 5-day where you have 2 in-person, a remote, and 2 more in-person, we don't have that luxury of having that day in between. And so what we need to do is iron out some of that information on how we're going to ensure that all students have equitable time with the teachers for in-person. So that's something else that we're working on currently. And then finally, as always, and I think you guys mentioned this in your motion that you made on October 13, is that we continuously update you on where we are with our reentry plan. So on November 10th, we will come back and give you an update on where we are with some of those finer details about the plans, as well as where we are with the numbers. I know that Lisa Garcia Stewart and her team are going to help us get that information out so we can start collecting who's in person, who's remote, and then hopefully we'll have a lot of that information by Thanksgiving. And then finally, you are all more than welcome. Please send your questions to Mr. Lopez or Ms. Page and Dr. Miguel, and we will be happy to answer those for you all. So I hope that helps give you a little bit of information about where we are in the process.
Well, Mr. Anderson, are we talking to other districts who are already doing it to see what's working, what's not, so we can kind of get a feel, as well as I still think we need to talk to teachers too, to get a feel from them, what they're going through and how we're working it out. And it is not a gripe session, but a session to make sure we at least hear them out and hear what other schools are doing to see what we're doing so we can fine tune it and put out the best possible product.
You're absolutely correct. It's not, like you said, not a gripe session, a problem solving session. What we want to do is bring ideas and solutions to the table, and then people can help us solidify that even more. The last thing we want to do is say, this is all coming from district office and we're putting it on you. We really do need their voice in it. So bringing in those administrators, bringing in teachers, as well as bringing in other stakeholders such as parents into that conversation is going to be important. And then working with other districts as well.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. For the purposes of time and to keep us moving along, I think these are excellent questions. Please submit any questions. And this is, the nice thing is that this is something that we will continue to evaluate, and that Mr. Anderson and his team and Dr. Miguel will continue to bring back in front of us as they learn more information, as they do exactly what you said, Ms. Page, look at lessons learned from other districts and from our teachers and other staff. So if you have additional questions, please send those to Ms. Page, myself, and Dr. Miguel, and then we can route those to the appropriate folks and get you your questions answered and send that back out to the rest of the board. So thank you, Mr. Anderson and team, for your presentation tonight.
We have already discussed bringing it back to the board at the November meeting and the December meeting. So you will get updates and more details on any of these pieces.
Thank you so much.
Our next one is strategic planning, and I'm going to invite Mr. Linkus to come present as an information update on the strategic planning metrics for the 2021 school year.
Good evening, Board President, Madam Vice President, members of the board, Dr. Miguel. I'll briefly go through our board, what the metrics will look like, or what we're presenting to you as an informational item as far as our strategic plan. So last month, I came in front of you and you guys were able to look at our initiatives, our objectives, our themes. But tonight I'm going to just basically talk about what our outcomes are. So our three major outcomes are the increasing academic achievement in literacy for all students, increasing academic achievement in math for all students, and preparing all students for college and career. And those were approved by you guys back, I believe in February or March when Dr. Faust presented them. So we'll talk about what the metrics will look like as we look to measure those. So in looking at the first one, in increasing academic achievement in literacy, one of our new tools that we're using across the district is FastBridge. And what we'd be looking at as a target is establishing a baseline. The reason for that is with us starting with remote learning, we didn't get a chance to do a BOY or a beginning of year test. So our testing will start with the middle of year and an end of year. As we look at CAP, one of the things that we heard loud and clear from the board was looking at raising proficiency. So when we looked at those level 3s and 4s, we are setting a 10% increase, looking to get a 10% increase in the number of students scoring at levels 3 and 4. KELPA, which Ms. Rodriguez was able to talk about earlier, we're looking at going with what the state average is of 95% of students who should take the test will. And our goal in the district is yearly 1/3 of our students who take KELPA will move up to the next proficiency level. So just, I put an example there of if they're at level 2, they will move on to level 3. In regards to mathematics, these will look very similar. And your FastBridge will be something we'll use with our K through 2. Establish those baseline scores again in math because this is new to everybody. And we're also looking for those 10-point gains in mathematics as well. The thing to keep in mind is we're looking at that because we really want to push things because we know as of 2030, the state has a requirement for 75% proficiency. So this will put us in a good position to continue our growth and get us to that point and or before that date. The last metric we looked at was to prepare all students for college and career. One of the things we looked at was graduation rates. The reason we went with 92% is because meeting with Dr. Pitch, the cabinet, and other members of the team, we were able to raise our graduation rate last year to the high 80s. So with that, we wanted to continue forward progress, and we felt jumping to 92 would be our next number we can hit. As we look in the next component with the certifications, the market value assets, AP, gifted and IB enrollment, and dual enrollment, we looked at a few items to measure this. So we looked at 100% of our students taking the ACT at the high school level. We do have pre-ACT, so they do get those opportunities before they were juniors and seniors. 44% of our graduating seniors will be classified as Diploma Plus. We generally would have gone higher than that, but in talking to Dr. Bilbo Irvin as we were setting goals, due to transportation concerns and parents not wanting their students on site, some of our students, our enrollment to some of the colleges is less than what it was last year. So that's why we went with the 44. And we also looked at a 5% increase in participation in AP classes compared to the 2019-2020 school year. As we all know, we're expanding advanced placement courses at our high schools, so we're looking to continue that with an increase in enrollment. As we look at our college enrollment, one of the things we know is a 21 says you're college ready according to many data points. Last year, 10% of our students scored at that level. So our goal is to move that number from 10% to 20. And then Naviance is something I know Dr. Bilbo Irvin brought in front of you guys last year. It was purchased. And we're looking at 95% of secondary students starting their individual plan of study in Naviance, with 35% completing all individual plan of study. The reason the number's at 35% and not higher is because due to connectivity issues and students being at home, there isn't the consistency of students being able to get on the computer and do these programs like they would if they were on campus. So that's basically where we are with our metrics. I just wanted to bring those for an informational purpose to you guys. We also wanted to let you know that starting next month, for each of our initiatives, we will have one of the strategic planning groups coming up to present, and they will talk about the progress in their particular initiative. So if there are any questions from the board, I will answer those, or I'll phone a friend who can help me out if I need a little more detail.
Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Linkus, for the update. Again, board, you have these slides in front of you or at your disposal. Please send any questions to Mr. Linkus, Dr. Miguel, or to Ms. Page and I, and we can forward those on as appropriate. But thank you for keeping us posted, Mr. Linkus and Dr. Miguel. Great to have some metrics that we can measure. So we'll keep moving along. Thank you.
Mr. Linkus, don't go too far, because the next one is an informational item as an update on the Wallace Foundation partnership. Mr. Linkus.
Thank you, guys. Great to be back in front of you after all that time. Thanks for the reminder, Dr. Miguel. I was running for some enchiladas, but I'll hold off on those for a little while. What I'm bringing in front of you is our partnership with the Wallace Foundation. This has been a partnership that's gone on for over a year. You guys have not had the opportunity to hear about it, and I'll apologize in advance for that. But we've had a couple people who are actually the point person in the district that have moved on to other positions in other districts. So at some point, it just did not end up coming in front of you. But I think you're going to see there's a lot of positivity come out of this. And I'm just going to hit some highlight points and talk about how it's positively impacting KCKPS. So one of the things we look at is 31 states are part of this project, Puerto Rico and also the District of Columbia. So this is a national pipeline that goes going on. As we look at the Wallace Foundation, this is what they're here for. So one of the biggest things is they're looking to enrich the learning for disadvantaged youth across the nation. So they're looking at the various districts. So the districts they work with are urban districts, but they're also working at districts that are very well organized and have infrastructure that they can come in and support work that is going forward. Some of the districts across the nation that are part of this are the Denver Public Schools, New York Department of Education, Hillsborough County, which is Tampa Bay, Charlotte-Mecklenburg is amongst a couple others. What does this really mean? So they look to help with the lowest performing schools. So they reached out to us as a district last year. They reached out to Dr. Charles Faust. He was very excited because they've done work with other urban districts and have shown success. And the part of having a pipeline to where we can internally grow leaders and have leaders that come from within really cuts down on our having to look outside. Not that we're not going to look at all the best applicants, but it really sets us up to be successful with applicants who can take the job that are already working within our district. Where are we with Wallace? Well, we're part of 90 school districts. Dr. Miguel and I, as well as the IIOs, and some of the IIOs took part in a session of the PPLC in August. We'll be doing another one in November. We had opportunities to work with various leaders in the 90 districts. So Dr. Miguel would be with other superintendents. I would be with other central office individuals. And our IIOs are with other principal supervisors. So there's opportunities to share best practices and learn about what similar districts are doing to move their schools, their leaders, and their people forward. As we look at this, what are the goals? One of the biggest ones is develop a work plan to further the district's principal pipeline. We want to have, as we like to say, a bench of quality candidates who are ready to go. So when we have openings, we can start with those interviews internally. We're made use of our consultant. Our consultant is actually Mr. Steve Gehring. He was a principal in KCKPS and also worked for Chicago Public Schools and is working with Wallace. So he was part of this. Who are some of the partners? The NYC Leadership Academy and West Ed are a couple of them, just to name. And these individuals are also on the calls, the sessions with us. Previous to COVID, we did have a couple of our IOs go to New York City and get engaged with some professional development in person. This is their book, Principal Pipeline Self-Study Guide for Districts. These are what they align everything to. These are their standards, or their domains, excuse me. So they have leader standards. And what we've really looked at is the high quality pre-service principal preparation. We want to have a bench of people ready to roll. They've also done some work with our principal supervisors. So they have done some work with our IIOs, which is over here on some of the benefits of the partnership. We've been able to dialogue with other leaders from across the country. And the strategic support was given to start our Leadership Academy, which was in effect last spring. So a number of applicants were part of this Leadership Academy, and I'll get into the fruits of that after this next slide. Last thing we have going is we'll have November 10th. This partnership is free. We have not paid for anything as far as cost. They will let us know on that date if they're able to extend the partnership beyond that date. They're going to see what funding is available. We were fortunate to go a little longer because of some of the other expenses that people would normally have with travel and other things. COVID impacted that. They were able to save some money in some places, and we've been able to be part of that. Some of the things we're looking through is a principal principal combine, where we work with our principals on different skill sets. They work on data. They work on different things. We know they need to be an effective building leader. And these will be our people internally that'll be doing that. We'll be leveraging IIOs. We'll be leveraging building leaders, central office, to ensure we're training our principals to step right into buildings. The last thing with this is they'll do an impact project, which is they will look at some data at their school. So the project they work on will go back directly to their campus and assist them improving the learning environment or something with the building culture, depending on something that needs to improve at that site. Here's the beauty of the program. So when we look at the benefits of the partnership, our new principal at Washington High School, Kola Maya, was part of the pipeline, our pipeline last year in our Leadership Academy. Zanetta Bowles, who's at Silver City, Shannon Shelton at Quindaro, Melissa Hunter Boyce, who's one of our APs at West Park, Jody Moschler, who's an AP at Francis Willard, Tom Sowers, who's the principal at Earl Watson ECE, Janelle Urban, who's an AP at JFK, and Janelle Waters, who's an assistant principal at Carl E. Bruce. So we've already seen the fruits of what this can bring to us. And we're very happy to say we've got some very hardworking individuals who came out of our pipeline or our academy and have started the year doing great work at their campuses. So there's definitely been a lot of benefits to this. And we just wanted to share this information with you guys so you know what's going on with it. We will find out next month if they're going to continue work with us and other districts. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
I noticed, and it's good the individuals that you have there, but we need to also get more men involved. Is that something you're working on? Because our boys, they see women. I'm not saying women can't do the job. They've done a phenomenal job, but we do need to get more men involved in this program.
Yes, ma'am. We will look for diversity.
Yeah, I was going to say in that same vein, do we have any teachers involved? I heard us mention some principals.
So we actually had instructional coaches. So the first part of the pipeline was looking for principals. If we look at the strategic plan that I was just explaining, in year 2, we would be building some of those other pipelines so that we're looking at how can we build a teacher if they want to be an AP or if they want to move to be an instructional coach. So we'll be working on those next. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Linkus and Dr. Miguel for presenting.
Thank you.
Great information.
So the next one is an update on the YMCA childcare partnership that we have. And I would like to invite Ms. Tushman to give us an update.
Good evening, board, Mr. President and Vice President Page. Good to see you guys tonight. I just wanted to give a brief update. You all should have received a packet about the YMCA and kind of where we're at. So what I just wanted to do is give you a brief, like I said, update on this partnership that we've been working with the YMCA, thanks to Steve Scraggs, who brought this idea to us. Our usage is still low, unfortunately, and I think you saw those numbers. I think we have it's like 7 students at our Bethel location, but at our other location, we had probably about 40 students at that location. So we are using both facilities. I think it's the Mayo Center is one of the center's locations, and then Bethel is the other. And we are hoping that our usage goes up. We have sent out 4 different surveys, just so you know, because I think that question came up before. But we did start surveying back on October 1st. We went basically October 6th and October 8th, and now again on October 22nd. And on the last survey that we sent out, because we haven't seen as much usage, we surveyed all employees. And so those responses go directly to the YMCA. They follow up on those responses from our staff. And I think at this last survey that we just sent out, it went out to 4,352 emails, and that is our district emails. So I did want to verify that as well. We are sending it to our district email addresses because we know that we don't always have reliable phone numbers and personal email addresses. So they did go out to the district email addresses. And of those 4,000, we had 380 some responses. So the response rate is going up. I suspect that as we have people who need to come back to work, we will have probably some more usage of that program. But I just wanted to give you that update, let you know where we've been with the surveys. We have surveyed in total 5,000 employees. And some of those are duplicates, of course. So some people got surveys a couple of different times, just so you're aware. Any questions? That I have Steve on as well. So if you have any specific questions about the program itself, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any of those questions.
Ms. Tushman, what's the capacity at both centers? How many kids can each center hold?
I'll let Steve answer that.
Hi, Ms. Page. Yes, the center over at Via Mayo Community Center, our capacity is 45 students, and our capacity at Bethel is 59 students.
And there were parents, were teachers and other administrators. Do they fill out a health card? Who are the people working with them? Have they provided some background information? Because that was a concern for people as well. Who are the individuals who will work in this program? And what's their background? What's their training? And do they go, when you go in, because I had a principal say she took her child and they never asked her, does he have any health issues? What's going on? And you would think that would be something that comes up.
Well, we do a screening every day. When a student comes in, they take their temperature and it's recorded. And they are asked 4 questions about if they have a fever, if they've been exposed to anyone who has tested positive for COVID-19, have they traveled? Those are standard questions that get asked at our centers to children every single day. Again, they get their temperature taken every single day before entering the facility. In terms of the people who work the facility at Bethel, it is KCKPS employees, along with a YMCA senior leader. And then at the Amayo Center, it is YMCA employees and several KCKPS employees. I can speak for our employee training program. All our employees have been trained and screened through the state of Kansas. We're a licensed program, so all of our people have to go through all of the basic trainings, including CPR, child care basics, child abuse prevention, social emotional learning, so on and so forth.
And do they do background checks?
Yes, we're required by law in the state of Kansas as a licensed provider.
Now, you talked about screening. My question had to do, and maybe I was not clear, that if I brought my child, do you even ask me, does he have asthma? Is he allergic to anything? They were saying they didn't get that kind of questioning. So I'm asking, is that something that you do? Do you fill out that sheet or that card so it's on record that if he has a peanut allergy, why would you give him peanuts? You know.
Right. We're required by law, Ms. Page, to ask those questions in our enrollment packet because, again, we're governed by the state. And so all of the licensing components that the state would require in terms of health and other significant components that involve, a child's personal information, almost the same that school districts are required, we're required through those same processes. So whenever they enroll, they complete a health screening. It's not a YMCA screening, it's a state of Kansas screening.
Okay, and then my last question, if I'm an essential worker, what is the cost for me? Because we put out they didn't have to pay. So is there no cost if I work and I'm a janitor and I got 3 kids, or if I'm a food service worker, what's the cost?
There's no cost. All of your district participants who are involved now, there is no cost. Any district participant between now and December 31st, there will be no cost.
Okay, but what happens? Have you set up what if we don't go back in January? I'm just saying, what if? How does that play? Or have you thought that far ahead?
We have, and so I'll talk in terms of 2 things from the YMCA's perspective. I don't want to speak for Dr. Miguel or Mr. Linkus or Ms. Tushman, but certainly our belief is that if there is a need for the program, we want to continue to offer it, and we want to continue to offer it at no cost or as little cost as possible. We're in a memorandum of understanding with the school district, and so if the district decides that they would like to extend the program into January, that's something certainly we would love to have those conversations. And then to the second point, depending on the state of COVID relief, I know, like Mr. Linkus said when he was talking about Comcast, some of this money has an expiration on it, and it's at the end of the calendar year. But if there is some carryover, which we at the YMCA have had some conversations with folks up in Topeka in the legislature, we would love to see some of that carryover be available for families who need it for this sort of childcare.
Okay.
And that's why when we were having the initial conversations, we thought that Bethel was a perfect location, because even when we go back to school, if we still need the services, that's not a building that we're using. So we will continue these conversations and bring updates to the board, just like we're bringing updates on the reentry plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tishman and Mr. Scraggs. Good to see you all, and thank you, Dr. Miguel. All right, let's keep rolling with our agenda. And so next up, Dr. Miguel.
The next one is an informational item with action to follow on the Future Leaders Outreach Program. And I would like to invite Dr. Diana Clemens to come and present to the board on the goals of the program and the MOA that we would like to accept.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Again, to Dr. Miguel and the board of directors and other leaders that are on the board, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share our program that we've been implementing since 1999. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, does everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Future Leaders Outreach Network, we present to the school district. We've been in the school district, back in the school district since 2018, but we've been in the school district since 1999, off and on. And the program that we're presenting is Young Leaders of Distinction. From 2018 to 2020, we were implementing the program in 2 high schools and 1 middle school, and that was Northwest, now called B. Bruce. And our goal is to continue to equip and add value to students grades 5 to 9 of the Kansas City, Kansas Public School Unified School District 500 of Wyandotte County, Kansas. Our mission is to provide adolescents and adults with skills that empower them to set goals, become effective leaders, pursue economic well-being, and make healthy choices. And founded in 1996 and incorporated in 1999 to date, FLON, commonly known as FLON, has served over 313,000 teens and young adults and over 67,000 parents and caring adults in targeted communities of 7 states. The program that we're offering is free. We are very excited that the Family Youth Services Bureau of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services federal grant, 2 grants that we wrote, that Future Leaders Outreach Network was one of 45 grantees across the nation that was funded. And for the first time in our leadership, under my leadership, Future Leaders Outreach Network received 2 grants. So one day we received a notice that we received one of the grants, and I'll share with you what those specific grants are. They're both the same. One is a larger amount of money, and the other one is a smaller amount. And so the first grant is $445,834, which will allow us to be able to continue to keep our doors open, hire additional employees, as well as to expand to teach more students. And that is a 3-year grant. And then the second grant is the grant that we've been implementing the last 2 years, which was awarded to us again to continue the great work that we have done in the district. And that was $235,228. And that grant is a 2-year grant, and with hopes that we will continue to be funded to continue the work. There is no cost to the school district at all. So this program, Young Leaders of Distinction, which is part of the Pursuing My Dreams Equal Club project, will teach young people prevention from drugs, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, violence to include bullying and teen pregnancy, career exploration, goal setting, unlocking my potential, which is one of the modules to help increase low self-esteem if a child is dealing with low self-esteem or low self-worth, and self-regulation as relates to their emotions to get that under control. Job readiness, character leadership development, and financial literacy, and a new module that we implemented some time ago at the Bannister Mall when we were implementing the program in Kansas City, Missouri, Introduction to Becoming an Entrepreneur. A lot of young people say they want to own their own business. So the students are taught these self-regulation and resiliency skills to include these 7 qualities that prepare them to be a leader, and that is confidence in themselves, integrity, commitment, effective communication, accountability, respect for self and others, effective decision making. And this is a PowerPoint presentation. I shared this at the February 25th board meeting. We're at Carby Bruce. All students, grades 6 through 8, created their own vision board. And it was a really fun activity that we did over a 2-day period. Actually, the first day was getting them ready to prepare the vision board. And they spent that day in the classes that we were scheduled to teach in, which was social studies. And these students completed putting together their vision board. So the smiles on their faces, we share with them, there's one thing to want to have all these things on the vision board, but it's another thing to make sure you stay very focused on your academics. Our program always points back to the academics, and we add value by doing that and being of a support to the school district. So that concludes the PowerPoint presentation. So and then I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Miguel, in reference to the memorandum of agreement. I have until, you see the clock is ticking, a few days left to get the signed MOAs. That was one of the conditions in the grant award that we received, that we get the memorandum of agreement signed and sent back to the funding agency so that we can continue to do our work and I'll work closely with the principals of the schools that were included in the grant and how we're going to roll that out without the program being too much more on top of what everyone else is already doing in the school district. We're very mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clemens. And I want to highlight how Dr. Clemens has been very understanding of all of the challenges that we are having due to the pandemic and the different modes of instruction that we have had to adapt. So we're already having conversations about a possible larger scope of the work once we go back to regular what we know as regular school. So I would like to open it up for any questions that the board members may have for Dr. Clemens.
Dr. Clemens, I would just say that this is the exact type of partnership that Ms. Page and I and the board were speaking about when we talked about the Enough is Enough initiative and pledge. This is the type of partnership that can really help us reach our young people and curb some of the violence, but also just propel in academics. So we want to thank you for the work that you've done with our district and in the community thus far.
Thank you.
I would say the same thing, that our kids need it. And I appreciate you thinking about us. And she's a former graduate of our district. So we applaud you for taking the time and energy to come back to want to contribute and do something to make our district better.
Ms. Page,
that was my commitment.
She's going to be there on Thursday.
I was just going to ask Ms. Page, was that a motion to enter into the MOA? Did that sound like a motion?
Yeah, I move that we accept the program Future Leaders Outreach Network and sign the MOA so that we can get the program started.
Thank you, Ms. Page.
Second.
Ms. Clark seconded. Thank you so much. Any further discussion? Ms. Smith, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
You're muted, Janie.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Okay, thank you. Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager. Stacy, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Clemens, for all your work, and we look forward to continued service to our students.
Absolutely. Thank you. And on behalf of our board of directors and the students that we will serve, the parents and other caring adults, we thank you and we look forward to this continued relationship with no money charged to the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clemens. Welcome back. And
thank you, Dr. Miguel.
How well she partners with us, because I said several times, Dr. Clemens, we need to make sure everybody understands it's at no cost, that you have all of the resources. So she said it 2 or 3 times because I emphasized it so much. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the district. Looking forward to the partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you all, everyone.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Miguel, we'll continue
Yes,
on.
the next one is the leadership development plan that I would like to share as an informational item. And I'm going to share my screen. And let me quickly go to slide. And when Mr. Luis from Argentine, the math teacher from Argentine was talking, I thought I should have asked him to kind of set this up, because he was talking about you can be someone who ceases to learn, learning from each other and building community and peer accountability and all those things that he described that were working so well for his kids and enhancing their learning is kind of what I had in mind when I was thinking of this leadership PD for our leadership in the district. And in doing a little bit of research, I found the strong correlation that there is between the capabilities and skills and efficacy of district leadership as a team, not the individual people, but as a team, and on student achievement. And lots of research about the ongoing development and how it's a cost-effective approach to professional development, but also to retention. And when Mr. Linkus was sharing the strategic plan, that connection with a strategic theme number 4 that talks about developing and retaining Kansas City, Kansas employees, we know that especially in this profession, but I think in any profession, when you get into a leadership position, what you want is to get better at it. And I think in our district, we have lots of opportunities for professional development, for teachers, for principals. Sometimes we have a little too much because we have those conversations about when are we going to do all of this professional development without overwhelming staff. But what we sometimes don't have enough is that professional development at the leadership level. And of course, we hire very effective people with skills that they come with to fulfill the job that we hire them for. So we're not talking about developing those individual skills that you needed to begin with to get the job. We're talking about developing those collaborative skills that will allow us to set goals as a team, to work with each other better, and to not only learn from each other, but push each other's thinking to get better at implementing efficiently the district and the board priorities. I think when we don't do that type of team building and professional development, then we start operating in silos, which may work very well for your department, but we know that our common goal is student achievement, and we have to really be able to use the high level skills of each department to come together and see how do we help each other? How do we set those common goals? How do we have a clear vision that is all about students and in service of schools and not for each department? So the work would be mainly around that alignment of district goals and board priorities, making sure that all of the work that the individuals departments do come together to work towards some common goals, that we're looking at student data all the time. Each department does not exist for its own purpose, but it's always in service of schools. So how do we develop that common understanding? And then allocating resources from each department to support those goals of achievement and instruction. Some of the goals that we would have with this professional development plan that I brought to you is to ensure that supportive team, to provide unity of goals and supportive consistency. Let me take this off, to the work, to strengthen the collaboration so that everybody benefits from those skills that each individual has, and that we start looking more consistently at student data with the goal of increased student achievement. This will also bring better accountability to the district leadership, so that now you're not only accountable for the efficiency of your department, but we are all accountable for the well-being of students. and of staff. The objectives that I've shared with you that were identified in this proposal is to work with cabinet leaders as a cohesive team so that we can organize our work to implement the board vision and priorities, to provide development and coaching to the instructional improvement officers as principal supervisors that are also aligned to the board and to the cabinet, and to provide coaching and thought partnership for the superintendent to lead the cabinet members in this common work. And the strategic priorities that we have aligned with is good stewards of resources and financial accountability. And that's based on the research that people who find they are growing and they are getting better will stay longer in an effort to maybe prevent the people leaving the district. If you are in doing a job that you really like and that you also feel that you're learning and getting better, chances are you're going to stay longer. High performing workforce so that we can get to the high expectations for student achievement. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Miguel on this program? So Dr. Miguel, this is an informational item tonight. You're not asking for any action.
Unless you don't have any questions and you want to approve the plan, but if not, it's just an informational item and I can bring the contract back for further revision and to give the board time to answer any further questions if you so choose.
And the proposal with the cost is in the board docs in your agenda board, if you have had a chance to look at that.
Dr. Miguel, we've had a few discussions on this, and I thought it's probably best if I also express them publicly. Sure. Based on your presentation by the Wallace Foundation, as well as your statement that, and our acceptance of you getting your own coach, it appears there's a duplication of services that, while a small amount within the larger budget, and of course I don't know which budget this is coming from, it just seems, one, there's a duplication of services. Number two, while it is not the same budget, it is not the same issue, I'm getting responses from, for lack of a better statement, employees at lower levels. And so, again, I'll say out of our large budget, $36,000 is not a lot. Mm-hmm. However, some are considering there's still people making less than $15 an hour. There's still, and I'll have questions about the hazard pay that perhaps at this time, this professional development for your cabinet levels could be maybe put on hold while we concentrate on re-entry and maybe, again, you're saying you want to retain people. Well, we want to retain people at all levels. So sure. Those are the conversations I've had with you privately that I thought is important to express publicly, because at this point, I'm not supportive of that plan for those reasons.
Sure, and very valid concerns, Dr. Wynn, and you know that I share those about payment for people at all levels. I would like to clarify that the funding that we would be using for this comes directly from Title 2A, which is professional development funds that have to be used for professional development, and it's carryover money that was not used in the spring due to all the COVID restrictions. So if there were funds allocated for consultants to come to our district, because they couldn't come and the training was done virtually, the cost was reduced. If we had people that were scheduled to go to conferences, all those travel costs were reduced. So this is money that carried over and has to be spent for professional development. So it wouldn't be taking anything from salaries or from any other groups because we couldn't use it for that.
But it could be used for professional development for any level of employee.
Sure. Okay. I do want to point out, and when you talked about the duplication, the work that we were doing with the Wallace Foundation was specifically for the principal pipeline. So it was just for that level of how do we grow our own principals. So we had assistant principals, instructional coaches that participated. As Dr. Mr. Linkos explained, there was some time that the Wallace Foundation had kind of left over because of the traveling that wasn't used. And they gave us some days, and that's when the consultants from the Wallace Foundation worked with the instructional improvement officers, but it wasn't part of that plan. So all of that professional development actually stayed at the highest level was the instructional improvement officers. So when you look at the professional development that we have had over the last few years, I would say there are lots of different groups that receive a lot of professional development and have lots of opportunities. The cabinet level, I would venture to say there are a few people who may have gone to a conference here or there. And that's one of the reasons that I was so excited about bringing somebody in, because when you send somebody to a conference, it's a great experience. Everybody enjoys it, but the person who attends is the one who learns. And then the 14 or 15 other members of cabinet, in this case, they stay here and we are hoping, tell us what you learned, and maybe we'll learn a little bit. By bringing a consultant in here and working with us as a group, we all learn at the same time. We turn around and the following day, we apply what we learned and bring it back at the next session. So it's, I think, much more effective use of professional development dollars because we touch every single person in this group with application directly on the work that we're doing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So just for clarity, you said that most of the people in the cabinet have not received any leadership development training.
Not as a group. That I can say for a fact, not as a group. So, and this is why I keep emphasizing team building and collective goals and looking at data together, because I think since this cabinet was formed, and I did ask because I wasn't part of cabinet, so I didn't want to misquote, they did not have as a group collective training to create a clear vision and common goals. So that I can say with certainty.
But let me ask this again.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that you all don't come together as a cabinet and you don't look at data? I mean, we have our strategic plan.
Right. And we do
what our goals are and what we're supposed to be working toward. So
we do that, and we meet weekly and we look at all of that. I'm looking at the learning and getting better. And when Dr. Link, when I keep calling, Mr. Linkos, I know you're on your way to being doctor because I keep calling you that. When Mr. Linkos was talking about the Wallace Foundation and the professional development that we attended in August, one thing that I noticed is it was a full morning, I believe, a little bit longer maybe. One thing that I noticed that I was interesting was how long it took me to switch to learning mode and to start absorbing the information that was being shared. And I was in those sessions with other superintendents from whom I have so much to learn, but it took me a minute to switch to learning mode. And my reflection on that was because we haven't had that systematic professional development, we're in the mode of giving. we provide professional development, we provide coaching, we provide support to others. And it's been a while since we received to refill our bucket. And that's, I think, what I'm trying to bring to the group. Let's do some learning together so that we can support better.
Thank you, Dr. Miguel. Thank you for the questions, everybody. So it sounds like, good information, something that we'll circle back to the board. I do think if there are other questions or thoughts or concerns, please contact Dr. Miguel directly.
Please do.
And she can walk through those with you. I do agree. Your greatest investment is investing in yourself. And so if we can continue to invest in, which we continue to do, and I think to your point, Dr. Nguyen, at all levels, from our lowest, to the highest, is something that we need to continue to do. So appreciate the opportunity and the conversation and the questions, everybody.
Randy, would you be able to put this on our next board meeting?
Yeah, Dr. Miguel, we can circle back. So
yes,
take note of that and we can bring this back.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And thank you for the questions.
Okay. So moving on with the agenda, we are at the reports of the public library to approve payment of bills for the public library.
I make a motion that we approve the payment of the public libraries.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you, everybody. And now we have the Turner Quarterly Report, which is in your agenda, and it's an informational item. So you can motion to accept that item.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda, you're on mute.
Yep, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Now we have our consent agenda. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Lopez, I'd like to set aside item C like cat.
Okay. Thank you.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda minus item C.
Second.
Moved and seconded, Ms. Smith.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Great, thank you. Dr. Nguyen, do we need an exec session on that? Or we go straight into that one now?
There's two, one question and one yes executive session. And again, I've discussed this with Mrs. Dr. Miguel and wanted to again publicly have the question answered. I received communication, this referenced the extra pay, hazard pay. So I guess my first question is, what's the criteria? I guess this is for Ms. Tushman. What's the criteria for hazard pay, please?
It's listed on the top of your above and beyond bonus document. Did you?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is for the time period between March and June 27th, right? And for those people that worked in person during that time period, they had to be working directly with the public. So the things that we think about in regards to that are serving meals, computer distribution. We even had some people serving as translators to parents that would qualify. And then those individuals who, quite honestly, kept us safe by cleaning our facilities continually when we had major, we had concerns over COVID and just keeping the facilities always clean. So we think about that from the custodial staff perspective. And so those are the those were the criteria.
Okay, so Mr. Lopez, I already spoke with for Dr. Miguel, and you too, Ms. Tushman, already know this because the appeal of these workers was denied. So I got communication from groundsmen, laborers who said they loaded trucks. When the nutritional workers were quarantined, they delivered the food. Therefore, they had direct communication with the community, seemingly fitting some of the criteria. And the question presented to me was, then why were they denied? And I said, I will ask that question publicly. And so this is not a surprise. I already spoke to Dr. Miguel. So again, the question is, if there are, and I think there's about 10 or 15 or so who appealed, who I guess requested the pay, they were denied. I don't know thereafter, but that's why I'm bringing it up to understand.
There is an appeals committee, so it's not just HR making that decision. We do have a committee that meets and goes through those appeals. We have people who submit appeals to the appeals committee, so that's still being done. And if in the case of somebody who did get denied, they're told why. So in the case of some of the folks you're mentioning, I don't know the exact situation, but they can always provide more information. So we will always take more information. If they have more information that they've shared, then they can simply share that back through the appeals process, and it will be considered.
Okay, so this collectively, the question was, why weren't they, when they also loaded food trucks, set up tables, interacted with the community, which included the criteria you just stated, were not granted above and beyond pay, since they also work between March and June. So it seemed that certain numbers of the criteria they met, however, they did not receive.
Well, and I don't know because I don't know the people, but as I said, we have had people resubmit when we ask them to provide more data, because sometimes people don't provide enough information. And so we'll say, can you please explain, or can you give us more details? Because we do want to consider everybody that helped through these processes. And sometimes just people lump it all together and they don't clearly delineate what part of that work was with the public in that regard versus.
Okay. So thank you. And that for the public who's listening, who asked those questions, that is your response. And that's the answer I received.
And I would suggest if anyone after that response still has questions or feels that maybe their case wasn't seen as they had presented it, to reach out to us and we'll look at it together and we'll communicate with that individual. So by all means, if you feel that you weren't, the response doesn't satisfy what you believe needs to be met, we'll look at it together and have the conversation.
Good, and thank you. And yes, Mr. Lopez, the second issue, make the motion to move it to an executive session for privacy for purposes of non-elected personnel.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, no.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so moving on to paying our bills.
I make a motion that we pay our bills.
Second.
Ms. Clark, or Ms. Smith, I'm sorry.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Lopez, did you miss an item?
Did I miss an item?
Oh, the sprinkler system. No, that's part of the consent agenda.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I actually just wanted to talk. I'm just.
It doesn't take long to take us off guard tonight, Greg.
I like how everybody thought that I was right until.
No, I didn't think that. I knew we didn't miss anything. Ha ha.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, Mr. Goheen. So we are ready for our executive sessions. I would entertain a motion to, and Greg, you said for this first one, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
10 minutes should be fine.
Okay. Would entertain a motion to enter into executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel at 9 o'clock. That gives folks 5 minutes to have a.
It's only 8:25.
I'm sorry, you're right. I did a long break at
8:30.
8:30 for 10 minutes and coming back at 8:40.
Do we have the link?
Yes, I will resend it to everyone if you don't have it. I'll send that. The motion?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Hold on just a second. Okay, Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark. Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page. Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry.
All right, everybody, we're back in open session. Okay, I would entertain a motion to recess into executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel. Going in at 8:45 and coming out, Craig, do you need about 25 minutes, you think? 30 minutes?
Greg, you're on mute.
So going in at 8:45 for 30 minutes. So coming back out at, that be 9:05?
We're going to get you a little clock.
About 9.
Help me out, y'all. 9:15.
With the hands, that you can move the hands.
Just make sure I'm not helping him out with the time.
We're going to get you a big clock, Greg.
9:15.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
And Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes.
Thank you.
All righty, I would entertain a motion to come back into open session, please.
So move. Second.
It's been approved.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page. Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would entertain a motion to go back into executive session for
15 minutes. Mr. Lopez.
15 minutes. All right, going in at 9:18. Where are my clock people at?
9:33.
Thank you. that a motion, Dr. Yeager? Thank you.
Oh, so moved.
And second.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page, Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Stacy, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, would entertain a motion to come back into open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda, you're on mute.
Yes.
thank you, Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would entertain a motion to go into executive session for 15 minutes, going in at 9:36 and coming out at 9:51.
So moved.
Second.
Right, Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would entertain a motion to come back into open session, please.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you, everybody. We are back in open session.
Mr. Lopez, I would like to move that we approve the HR report.
I'll vote. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the HR report. Any further discussion? Okay, Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, no.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, no.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes. And I appreciate the hard work and effort that Kelly Tishman and Dr. Miguel put in to everything for that human resource report and to be able to address all questions that we have and send in advance. I really appreciate your time and dedication to serving the full board.
All righty, thank you for that. Thank you, Ms. Smith, and thank you, board. Before we adjourn, just a quick reminder that we do have a special board meeting on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. And so please make sure you have the links for that. Also, for those of you that are doing reference checks, if you could submit those to me, to myself, Ms. Page, and to Ms. Smith, we will get a summary of all the references back to you before that special board meeting on Thursday. So if you can get it back to me, back to us by Wednesday evening, let's say by 7, I'll turn that around to you by Thursday mid-afternoon. So, all right.
Mr. President, before we adjourn, I just want to say this is a shout out to Arrowhead. I got a chance to attend their their drive-through fall festival for their students. And so before we end, I just want to say the energy was up. The teachers were excited. You'd have like 1 or 2 cars, but all the teachers were waving and excited to see everybody coming through. So shout out to Arrowhead. And I got a chance to attend because my daughter goes there. So I just wanted to say that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Clark. Shout out to all the nurses as well that have been giving out flu shots the past week or two. You guys have done an amazing job keeping our students and staff, families safe. So thank you, everybody. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.